Welcome to another special March rock and roll. Yours truly. It is 14th of August. Was a bit moody, but I'm grateful, thankful I did my laundry. Got some responses for the emails, got some more emails sent, and all of that work, a little bit of that work on that YouTube channel, always for the firefighters special. Butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, the plumbers, the electricians, the welders, train conductors, all those distribution of food on the truckers on the road, and the public transit workers, all the workers. We got some strike action here in Canada, United States, always for the 10, the 50, and the 6, and the 3 equals, if you add them all up, 63 for the coming of our empire. Let it be. Freestyle mode marching. It was a bit moody, but I said I'm gonna do what I do best and what I do kind of due to my Asperger's, this neurological mental divergent condition. I kind of have this routine, but I work out, train, exercise, and it's fitness, rock and roll, sports, and of course it is that rock and roll, fitness, sports, coupled with geopolitics 24/7 for the firefighters, butcher special, marching rock and roll LOV for the Empire Let It Be edition, special for the canola industry. We got a little bit of that canola problems because of the tariffs imposed by China, 75%, that's 3/4, and they gotta get a little bit of that good, and that's how we got a little bit of that rock and roll there, and we always gotta get a little bit of that meditation, and towards the sun, we're just gonna go do some checking towards the sun, and then we're gonna go back and in and out type of, we're gonna go drop something. I'm gonna go drop something in the donation box there for the neighborhood, NDG, Hawk Island, HAWK, Island of the Hawk, Montreal. Gotta sing it 24/7 for the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, the plumbers, the electricians, all those involved in the production, distribution of food, construction workers, welders, fast food workers, especially for the canola producers. So our canola industry is much dependent upon, of course, export to China. So this export to China, of course, is a very, very, very high amount of our, it's actually the second market, we gotta say, because our first market is our brothers and sisters in the USA. We cannot argue this with that, and that is just a fact, which has been, is, and will be. And we got some turbulence now, we have some problems which we need to solve. Our main focus as Canadians, Quebecers, got that Canada, and of course I am somebody who was born in the United States 3 times post 70-76, once as a woman, twice as a man, served in the same United States Armed Forces, twice 2 different wars, 156 years apart, and always for our coming fusion union, of course, let it be. But we gotta get that fully understood from a geopolitical perspective. When it comes to foreign affairs, our main interest is to have the best, most cordial economic, social, financial, military, defense relations with the United States, and vice versa, in reciprocity, the United States vis-a-vis Canada, vis-a-vis us, my brothers and sisters. The king is absent, So the king, being that a king is absent, we gotta learn to get on the go, and that's how we gotta get doing on that drill for the go, and for the butchers, for the bakers, for the nurses, for the doctors, for the firefighters, for all the electricians. The bakers gotta march for them and gotta give it on the go now, and that is just something which we have to do and appellate, and of course conjugate, and in a manner which we're totally immersed with everything that's going on. Of course, my special condition, neurological mental divergent condition, makes me that I have this special condition, not a disease. I'm not a disease. It's called an Asperger syndrome. I'm an Aspie. It's always geopolitics 24/7. I study the analysis of geopolitics, and it's geopolitical analysis and studies. And 24/7, I am an independent geopolitical theoretical analyst, theorist, theorist, and thinker and strategist, and who is really craving a little bit of a good hug. Gotta be honest. You hug for me like you never hugged before. For those gonna pick up the compost today, the compost, that is what it's gonna be, and that is what I'm gonna be with yours truly. That's gonna be on the go with that, and that's why I'm gonna get that dribble, and always gotta get a little bit of that meditation for everything that's going on, across the North American Collectif. Thinking about the truckers on the road carrying all those thousands and thousands and thousands of trucks now across the North American Collective, doing a little bit of that good drill, and doing a little bit of that good dropping of that bacon, that cheese, those eggs, that bacon, of course, always doing some of that good. And I'm gonna do a little bit of dropping myself now, I'm gonna do a little bit of the dropping of something, and just by a providence, see the number 63 there? It's always for the 63. Our empire, the 63, let it rise, let it be, by the fusion of Canada and United States, by creating fusion and implementing my DRT theory, and of course implementing the DRT theory for the North American Collective. And that is something which we have to do in the appellate and all the interjectional abilities that I'm gonna do a little bit of drop myself here at the fridge, community fridge. But I'm not gonna put it in the fridge, but I'm gonna put it on the side for donation. I'm just gonna take a look. I wish I could just fill this whole fridge up, but now I'm just gonna put a machine, so I'm gonna do a little bit of donation for the machine here. So that's what it's gonna be. I'm gonna be donating this. So I'm gonna be putting this there. Yeah, right there. So you're gonna be putting this. So I'm gonna be making a donation coffee machine. It works, I tested it, so it works. So I'm gonna be donating myself some of that coffee machine for somebody who needs it. So that's what it's gonna be here. Actually, it's not really a coffee machine, it's a heater. You heat it up and you take it, and that's what you gotta get doing. And I washed it, I cleaned it, and it's ready to go. Oh, I hold this up. Stainless steel electric kettle. Basically, it's a stainless steel electric kettle. It's a stainless steel electric kettle. And that's what it is, and that's what I got. See? Here it is for the 10 to 50 to 3. And that's what we got here, you know. Yeah, there we go. This is what we're gonna donate. Gonna cover it. I'm gonna put it there. See, this is the kettle, which it's an electric kettle basically, but I guess this we can put on the side. Somebody takes what it is and gonna take it from there. We're gonna put it there, and somebody's gonna probably take it. There we go. Kettle and other things. You got a kettle there for somebody who doesn't need to spend money, and this is gonna close right there. And put the backpack back on. See, I got those red gloves. These are the red gloves by which I have been them. They're a bit bruised because I've been using them, but I've been, of course, challenging Donald Trump to a boxing match ever since 2018, when Donald Trump started imposing tariffs on Canadian aluminum and steel. Yeah. Back in 2018, that was a mistake. And here I got to cross the street prudently, turn your heads left or right, left or right. And that's how we got to turn the heads left or right, because you never know, the brakes might malfunction, the electricity might snap at the brakes, the citizen driver might press the accelerator, and of course there's always that prudence which we gotta make and we gotta do. And see here, actually, if I advance, this is an ASPE thing which I'm gonna say now. So I was in my head, some mathematics popped out, so I was calculating the feet, my distance of how much distance it is there to cross in yards, right? It is about 20 yards, right? 20 yards from here to there, and how fast the car was coming. But this was just a mental type of calculation, and how fast should I go? Should I risk it at that point in time? So I decided not to. That's why I decided to speed it up. So if you know a little bit about this neurological mental divergent condition known as Asperger's, as I march today special meditating on the Canola products, which of course we've been tariffed 48 hours ago, about 4 days ago, I think, officially 4 days ago, since it was first announced by China that of course there's going to be tariff of 75%. I believe actually the number is 75.8. That's 3/4. That's a lot. That's a big tariff. And of course annually we export circa, we got to double check with me the numbers, but about 4.6, right? 4.6 million, 4.6, correction, not even million, it's actually in the billion. The number is in the billion. The actual number is in the billion, you know. So turn your heads left and right here. Well, even if there's a pedestrian, you know, you never know, it's a one-way street. I know the neighborhood, but sometimes, you know, you got to do the diligence and turn, and of course make it the prudence that you turn your head left and right, regardless of the other considerations and the appellations, which might of course be just the transit, how fast the cars go, how fast they run, and it's kind of like running or jogging. That's how I quantify marching, walking, running, or jogging. So I kind of put the car speed in those 4 categories, and then the estimations, and then if it's safe for me to pass. So here I gotta speed it up, like see my fellow pedestrian there crossing. But it's basically also a mental calculation if you are, of course, to put it in such terms. So now, of course, it is where we want to go, I guess. towards the sun best. We're gonna go towards the sun, but also we can do a little roundabout, right? Roundabout far by the mountain, and maybe do a little bit of a special type of march, because we can go towards the sun and then we can clock it and turn on the side and do zigzags, type of like different snakes if you want to counterpoise, you know, and all the counter positions which we have, and all the counter positions which we have today. The evaluation is that it is critical for the most critical point for us is to solve the current deterioration of relations with the United States. As a geopolitical theorist, analyst, independent thinker, that is just our fundamental part where we have to focus. And of course we have a lot of domestic issues. Myself, I'm financially stressed. I was a bit moody earlier, just a bit moody, and I said, I'm craving a big hug, just a big 15 minutes, half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour hug, some cuddling, some of that physical loving, if you gotta be 18 plus though, eh? So I played Black, White, and Rainbow. I'm also androgynous, pansexual, but you gotta be, of course, on the go side of things. And zal je voor hem Maas? Good. That is my uncle there. Say hello and go a little bit on the bike and going some of that biking with the big bike, big smile, and I smiled back. And I think we spoke a few years ago during COVID. He told me he got vaccinated, but it's not something if he's the correct person, because it's been a few years ago. Anyways, here of course in the neighborhood, as we go, of course, XYZ in Montreal, Hawk Island, Montreal, the island of the Hawk, and we of course try to establish a level of understanding. And my work, this is my work, as a YouTuber, I always freestyle, and it's always long marches or really short videos or really long videos like this one, really long or really short. I guess you got the extremes and type of where we have myself as a neurodivergent Aspie person, citizen, sovereign individual living with Asperger's. It's again not a mental illness. I'm not going to delve much about Asperger's. I'm just going to introduce it and briefly summarize so that we have a full understanding and accord and concordiate on what Asperger's is and what Asperger's is not, because myself have learned to live with it and accept it and integrate it on a daily basis. Of course, sometimes which we have to do, and we have to implement all our visibilities and all our interactions. As myself being part of the Aspie community, we constitute Aspies less than 0.44%, about 0.44%, less than half of a percent, less than 1%. Right, of the population have Asperger's. So Asperger's is not it's not common, in other words, it's not a common condition. It's not an illness, it's not a disease, it is a neurological, mental divergent condition. And it makes us Aspies just predisposed to these special, more awkward type of bodily movements, the way we communicate, our interactions, the way we speak, our body language sometimes, our communication styles, and we have certain rituals, repetitive ritual-like routines, Everybody's safe, that's the most important part. The cars can be repaired, the body is a temple for pleasure and purpose. So we have these specialized like routines, So due to the fact that we have these special like routines, most of our daily activities and lives are revolved around being involved with those special interests, what's called obsessive interest. Although usually using the word obsessive, the terminology obsessive does not really render an Aspie justice in what really Asperger's is. So of course, we have to fully understand that. We have to fully integrate that in all our plateaus, in all our beings, in all our discussions, that it's not an illness. So we start from there, because even last week somebody made a mistake and says it's an illness. So I know what it is, because I was having a discussion about this coffee. It was on special, coffee bags, instant coffee bags at a new supermarket that I never went. I went with an anonymous friend last week after we went to see a movie, and I had a discussion with somebody, and I don't know if he was a citizen or not, but regardless, we had a good discussion. He decided to buy the coffee because it was on special. I also decided, and to be honest, it was okay, but I don't know if I'm gonna purchase, unless it's for cost effective, just because I am financially stressed. Maybe that will be something which I would consider purchasing more regularly. But besides that, so we had a discussion, and of course we discussed, and at one point I'll mention that I have Asperger's, and the fellow citizen said, oh yeah, I know what it is, it's a disease. And I said, no, it's not a disease, it's a special neurological mental divergent condition. But I had to correct him twice because he kept mentioning, yes, it's a disease. And I said, no, it's not a disease, it's a neurological mental divergent condition. It just makes us predisposed to these special rites. It's like ritual routines. Think about them as ritual routines where our daily activities, daily life, usually we're super focused, super intense, super concentrated when it comes to those special interests. But utilizing, of course, the word obsessive doesn't render them any justice if you're an Aspie. And if you're an Aspie, you have several characteristics which are common and to more degrees in intensity with other Aspies, right? So this is just a common trait or characteristics. And again, please don't use the word kind of symptom. Symptom is more for an illness, where Asperger's, it's not a symptom. We have these mutations at the micro level of the cerebellum, the brain, right? The brain at the microscopic level has these mutations, but they're so small. So they're really like nano, right? Think about it as transistors. Transistors are very small objects, right? They're not really objects per se, but they serve a purpose for the microchips and the microprocessors in the computers, and the small computer which I'm doing this work now, the smartphone, they're the microscopic level transistors. So those, of course, are small. So these mutations are also very small at the nano level. So because of those small mutations, we see the world differently, and our brains process information differently. So thus, when we communicate socially, we are less able in certain circumstances to fully understand and process certain more social characteristics, natural characteristics of a social nature, which we, of course, endeavor ourselves to be, and of course, which the neurotypical, you the 99.56%, which you the neurotypical population, you have more ease with. So for us, it's more difficult to process social information. And so these social characteristics and social, it can seem very banal for you, very easy for you to do. The social norms, such as, for example, personal space. And that was just the point, because that was the point, that personal space, when I was engaging with this fellow, I don't know if it was a citizen or not, but in our engagements, in our discussions, I realized that I was coming too close. I got too close, so I took a step back, because I always manage my characteristics, right? So I took a step back. And of course, having taken a step back, that step back, of course, made me, of course, right away mention the fact that I mentioned that I have Asperger's, and the fellow citizen, or not, I guess, an acquaintance I made last week said, oh yeah, I know what Asperger's is, it's a disease. So I said, no. And he said, oh yeah, no, I know the disease. And I said, no, it's not a disease. And then he auto-corrected, he says, you're right, it's not a disease, it's a neurological divergent condition. So then I said, yes. That's what Asperger's is. So we can repeat sentences, phrases. We have this term echolalia. We might utilize too much functional, academic, intellectual, cosmopolitan language, which does not usually acquiesce to the full comprehensions of a dictums, where we are to communicate fully what we wish to express, or what we have to discern in terms of solution finding, or whatever discussion way we might have, maybe surrounding a special interest. And when it comes to those special interests, we can just go on and on for hours. Because me, if you work out, train, exercise, that's my special interest. If it's rock and roll. If it's geopolitics, those trinity of subjects, topics, those are my special interests. Obsessive interests, special rock and roll 24/7, geopolitics 24/7, sports and fitness 24/7, dancing being my favorite sport. So of course, in all the dimensions of the functionality, when we're involved in those activities, we can be very intense, super focused, super concentrated, super dedicated, right? But unfortunately, to the detriment of other things of daily life. So that's, unfortunately, again, to the detriment of other daily activities of daily life, So we might be labeled bizarre, weird, awkward, not normal in the way that, but then the normalcy, you have to also understand that there's no medication for Asperger's, because it's not a disease. It's just, we have to manage those characteristics, and we have to be told more directly, because we ourselves, we can be pretty direct, sometimes pretty direct and straightforward, and that might cause a certain offense, misunderstandings of a social cultural nature even, you know. And it's not that we mean to, you know. It's not that we necessarily mean to, right? It's not by volition or intention. It's just because our brains view things differently, and we might be just prone to just solve and bring some solutions, problem solving or solutions to whatever we have. But we also live, very paradoxically, we also have 3 problems which affect us. And those 3 main problems, right now, my only problem is economic, financial, commercial, the money problem. So we have 3 main problems. The 3 main problems, the trinity of problems is, hey, that's a nice one. Nice black bike. So the 3 main problems which we face, generally overall with different degrees for different aspects, as an individual sovereign citizen aspect, I do not pronounce myself for the whole aspect population, just myself as an individual, and even me, it took me years and years and years and years to accept it. I've been diagnosed, but independently by several citizens with some experience in the healthcare, is, of course, for the past 7, 8, 9 years, you know, with Asperger's, and I always just refused. I said no. But several people have diagnosed me on that, but I always said no. I just didn't want to accept the label, you know, because you live with look at those beautiful yellow flowers there. So you live with this stigma type of. Now we did a lot of change. In the 21st century, there's more and more understanding about Asperger's and autism generally. What's known as HFA is autism generally, or whatever the case may be, and autism generally. And of course, that is something which we have to apply, and of course, constitute in all our integral matters where we are today. So big sense to the fact that Asperger's cannot be medicated, first and foremost, because it's not a disease. We have to work on these characteristics and always build bridges, right? Whether the bridges are small, medium, large, extra large, small, medium, large, extra large, small, medium, large, extra large. Of course, within those categories can be subcategories, but generally I just say those 4 because just like when you order a coffee or fries, right? You might have the option to order small fries or coffee, medium-sized coffee or fries, large coffee or fries, or extra large coffee or fries. So within those 4, you have several appellations and several subcategories within those 4 categories, right? But generally, we have to build those bridges, and it's a two-way street. You have to, in neurotypicals, the 99.56%, the more than 99%, I don't have antagonistic, resentful feelings. You know, I suffered struggle. You know, I lost jobs, employment, and isolation is a problem for Aspies, and we have 3 main problems. Lack of friends. We don't have many friends. And my solution is, because I don't want to waste your time or anybody's time, as I've had experience in changing, phones and changing numbers and 2-3 calls, and that's it, that's all. And then other problems arise. So from now on, I'm really accepting fully of who I am, and I don't want to waste your time, and just don't waste mine, I won't waste yours, that's it. So friends with benefits only. If you're a man or woman, black or white or black rainbow, you're a man or woman, you want to take it out of friends with benefits, we can rock and roll do some good gridiron dance, loving and tickling. And I'm a pretty joyous Aspie. I've suffered struggle, I got my scars, my trauma, but I'm just financially stressed, broke but rich. I'm rich, affluent, wealthy, got 718 trillions of kisses, trillions of marching steps, got some rock and roll, and those are the laying of the foundations of the empire here in the North American Collective to fuse Canada and United States best in my via my trinity of TVs. So that is my solutions. Friends with benefits only, right? For me, friends with benefits only. The other problem, lack of friends, is high depression and suicidal rates, and this is alarming. For Aspies, we are a tiny community. It's 9 times higher, eh? For one of you, which constitute neurotypicals constitutive of the population, there is 9 of us, and I lived. I was depressed, I was suicidal, and it was a hard battle, a few years. And what got me out of depression, actually this month, maybe tomorrow, I think August 15, we might have reached, or we might have left for, of course, we might have reached, or we might have left for British Columbia. We might have left for British Columbia, Vancouver. you know, we might have left, me and my anonymous friend. So crossing Canada coast to coast in 2017 is gonna be, so now I'm starting to mark, I think by tomorrow, 8 years since I crossed Canada coast to coast, ocean to ocean. 8 years. And that event got me out of being depressed and being suicidal, you know, being depressed and being suicidal. I established a strong esprit de corps with my fellow Canadians, Quebecers, and I consider you to be my family, you know, ever since that period. That really illuminated, had a revelation. I said so many things to see, to do here in Canada, so many things to see, to do in Canada. So that event, crossing Canada coast to coast, because August we went in Vancouver, BC, 2017, and in September we went Halifax, Nova Scotia. So it's gonna be 8 years soon. Wow, 8 years, you know, since I got it on the go and since I got it on the now, and that it is what it is for that. And just that event really made, you know, make me had a little bit of that experience crossing Canada just made me illuminate, of course, all the characteristics which I have for the illumination. It was like a revelation, you know, like a revelation. I said, wow, so many things to see across this great through north, strong and free. And, you know, I don't need to carry the flag, I got it tatted on, but I don't remember when I got that tat. Probably decades ago, decades. I don't know, my memory, you know, I have retrograde amnesia. It's so I have basically problems, I have very good memory for the past 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 years. Then before 2014, before spring 2014, but that spring 2014 is already more than 11 years and 4 months, right? Because we're 2025 August. So spring 2014, that's that's already a long time. That's already a long time. To spring 2014, that is a long time. 2014 spring, that is a hell of a long time. If you think about it, 2014, that is a long time. That is a long time. 2014 spring, that is a hell of a long time. That is a hell of a long time. Spring 2014, imagine. 11 years and 4 months. 11 years and 4 months. More than 11 years and 4 months, you know? That's what it is with that. More than 11 years and 4 months. 11 years and 4 months. That is a long time. Think about it. That is a long time. But what matters is mostly today, because now I am very joyous. I'm actually happy. I was a bit moody, but you know, I see people working out, my brothers and sisters there being in solidarity, you know, and driving. I see a smile here and there for me in the car, you know. Probably see me on the mountains. He was this weirdo, you know. Well, yeah, I'm a weirdo. I have Asperger's and I'm androgynous pansexual, you know. I don't like violence. I was attacked by surprise and I fell, hit my head on the concrete and was bloodied up. Was bloodied up. And I had a dislocated right arm shoulder and went to the Jewish General Hospital where I cracked back and put on some meds. I was kind of in a coma, and of course, being that I was kind of like in that coma, you know, I don't know, maybe before 2014, you know, if a few years before 2014, if I was a junkie, was I a junkie? I don't know if I was a junkie, maybe I did lots of drugs, maybe I consumed a lot of alcohol, maybe I was an alcoholic prior to spring 2014, I don't know, because sometimes memory comes back with therapy or hypnosis or, you know, some sort of therapy, hypnosis, that's hypnosis or therapy, whatever the case may be. So that is just the life, you know, you have experiences, and I guess memory loss is one of mine, Asperger's and the scars, and, you know, sometimes memory comes back, maybe sometimes in my dreams I get some flashes, and I used to live in a moldy place, full of mold on the ground, space on the ground. It was like a tight, small prison cell, and of course, it was on the ground, a tight, small prison cell. Well, it wasn't really a prison cell, but it was so small, even the kitchen was integrated in the room. It's like one room with a small bathroom. We didn't even have a bathtub. I'm glad I have the bathtub now, of course, to take a bath, to bathe in, you know? To bathe in. Because I love taking baths, because I wish I could afford a massage therapy session, but that's what it is with that, and that's what we gotta get doing. Yeah, so 2014 March, April, March. So that is basically spring 2014. Basically, fundamentally, spring 2014. Spring 2014. Fundamentally, my life prior to that remains a mystery, although I have recommendations. Supposedly, I wanted to go to Kingston Military College. This geopolitics was also part of my components in constituency, of course. Geopolitics 24/7, and to the fact that I take a lot of pride in my geopolitical work, you know, that is something which we have to congregate with the go, and that's what we're gonna have to get on the doing with that, and we're gonna get on that rock and roll, you know, to get on that drill side, you know, the drill sergeant rock and roll, you know. So that's just part of who I am, and again, you know, have this problem remembering my life prior to spring 2014. But that's a long time ago. Think about it, we're 2025. So I have a very good memory generally, but just prior to that event. And I remember moving, and I thought it was like 2016, but it was 2010. So I left that moldy place, and nothing that I will to go back to. I was depressed, suicidal, crossing Canada coast to coast. Changed my life. I started working out, training, and exercising, and I'm calling, you know, for the mass financing, of course, of citizens to work out, to train, and to exercise, and to work out, to train, to exercise, and working out, training, and exercising has been, is, and will be my medicine and therapy of choice. And I lost between 50 pounds. Look at these beautiful flowers there. Aren't just so cute? These are nice also, super nice. So long. Can't pick them because they're private, eh? They're not public, but they're kind of cute. Really cute. So that's what it is. And that's part of who I am. It's live with my scars, my trauma, my aspiness, and there's no medication for aspies. And about 3.5 years ago, I've accepted it. I gotta give a shout out, gotta give a thank you to my anonymous friend, of course, who gifted me two books on autism generally, and one book was rented 4 times from the library. The book called Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome. It's one of the great books for anybody, Aspie or non-Aspie, and of course we got to build these bridges. But that book has helped me discover how I am vulnerable due to these Aspie traits, and sometimes which we have no control really over because of our brains. We see the world differently, so we think our brain is different, right? We're not necessarily molded by too much social, cultural acculturation, and the cause of Asperger's is, of course, is inconclusive. It could be hereditary, that is genetic, a genetic factor, genes or hereditary, or it could be environmental. So even a fusion, a combination, both joined together, hereditary, genetic, that is genes, right? Genes, genetic, hereditary factor, biological factor, and environmental. It could be either or a combination. So it's inconclusive. So neuroscientists don't even know exactly for sure. It's inconclusive, and it's a long lifetime because you cannot medicate Asperger's because it's not a disease, and we have our great strengths. Look at that helicopter chopper. So see how this is Aspie brains one-on-one. So now my brain is calculating the distance, estimating the altitude because it's altitude high up, and to try to figure out the speed, how many kilometers it's going an hour. So I know that it's going south, right? So the helicopter is going southeast. So that's southeast, right? So knowing that the helicopter is going southeast, you know, it's going southeast. See, the helicopter is going southeast, right? So I'm assuming that it's going about 100-200 kilometers. But I'm not sure because now it's taking a turn. So it's really hard to discern because I calculated out the parameter, right? So in the parameter of the calculation, it will be definitely an estimation. So that estimation will be conclusive to whatever the estimation is, you know, whatever the estimation is. So that estimation is, of course, only an estimation. So I estimate 156 miles an hour. It could be more, but it certainly traveled a long distance in only a few seconds. I stopped count after 44 and 9/11ths, right? I stopped count after 44 and 9/11ths. So I kind of stopped the count myself. But nonetheless, there's a real speed. So there's a real speed, right? The speed is an exact precise speed, right? There's an exact speed. But I can only estimate. But in my mind, I was trying to calculate the speed by estimating that it was at an altitude, right? At a certain altitude. Of course, it was high up in the sky. You know, it was not close. It was maybe possibly a kilometer up, altitude-wise. Altitude-wise, probably around a kilometer up, maybe less. Maybe between 660 meters and 1 point. Yeah, it's only estimations. Only estimations. I wouldn't. There's numbers that pop up in my brain, but there's only estimations, right? We have to measure concretely. Although the number in real time exists, right? So the number. Hey Smiley, hey Smiley, hey Smiley, hey Smiley. Kiss, 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 kiss. See those two cranes? And now again, I'm gonna show you one-on-one ASPE brains. So now I'm looking at those cranes and my brain starts calculating some mathematics. Are those two cranes exactly equal in length? And I see a bit blurred because I was prescribed some glasses, but are they exactly equal in length? And is that tip to that tip, are they exactly parallel? They don't seem to be exactly parallel, although because of certain optical illusions, they might seem, of course, like twins. Twins. They might be twins, but they might have also different characteristics, traits, which might be exactly complementary. What's needed to build. What's needed to build. And what we need to build, the 4, now I'm going to get on the 4. So we can be weird Aspies, but if I would have been with a fellow Aspie, would have probably had a long discussions mathematically and then exchanged some mathematics about distance, speed, and velocity, and volume, and length, and all that math, you know, because I really love math. I'm not advanced, I'm not a super genius in math, but I really love percentages and calculation of percentages. I love, like, when it comes to percentile calculation of prices increasing, of calculating the unit cost, calculation of the length of the distance and speeds and areas and surfaces. That's what I really love. I could do that all day, basically. You know, I could really do that. Maybe not all day, because I will have to do some geopolitics and rock and roll and fitness, but I could definitely engage in mathematics hours and hours a day. That's what we're gonna have to hydrate a little bit here. Thank you, workers. Now this would calculate also, right? How much water have I wasted? Because I'm trying, of course, to clear the pipes in milliliters since I started pressing the button about almost 45 seconds ago, maybe 44 seconds ago, right? And maybe I wasted a bit too much. But for health reasons, you know, because the pipe sometimes got that iron, got that, you know, you gotta clear the pipes. Oh yeah. Thank you. See, this is the privilege of right here. This, otherwise we will be drinking water from the river, eh? I spilled a bit on me, not too much. All because it was on the side. Well, I'm all wet now. Not all wet, but what happened is, of course, from over there, from the water fountain, I got wet. Anyways, it's just water, it's not PC. I got wet. I didn't realize when I got too close that it spills on the side. It was like on the fountain. So that's why the line, immersed it in water there. I guess it's just water, it's nothing to be worried about, but nonetheless, I really love these colorful here on the side, the plateaus here. It's really nice. See all this? Really nice here on the side here, see? Pardon. That's some good hydration. And what's that? I have no idea what that is, but I always like to check out a little bit of those stickers. Is that me? Priestess, Hana. Because I'm also a priestess. Rainbow Dragon got that priestess. You get that androgynous pansexual. I said priestess, not a hoe. Stripping is a dance form. Strippers, all dance forms welcoming the DGA. All dance forms welcoming the DGA. And that's what we got. And so we gotta get on that drill, man. That's the law. We refuse none, And so here we are, got a little bit wet, and we're gonna maybe go towards the sun. Although maybe if I go by the other side, will I get some more sun? If I go by this side, maybe I'll get more sun. But also now it doesn't seem to be that sunny. I feel like doing a different route than I usually do. Just changing the routes a bit. I have my patterns, my routines, my kind of with the same patterns where I go, but it's a good change sometimes just to change a little bit. I don't totally refuse change, but of course sometimes for Aspies change can be more difficult. It comes with a little bit more difficulty in terms of the change. But that one, see, you can see there all the dogs on the, wow, this is really good detail. This is really well done. I really wish we could see more of this embellishment, especially that is the color forms, all this very colorfulness. I love somebody who's, as you can, I love some of those colors, so it's always a colorfulness there. But yeah, I just love it how it's done. Somebody got great talent. I can rock and roll, but this is somebody or different artists who of course did this. And I gotta say, of course, it looks a bit sci-fi. Type a little bit of a sci-fi spacecraft alien type there with some bikes, and the combination a bit surreal, a bit fantastical. It's really well done, It's really well done to that, and it's really well done on the go. And that is just something which we do, and something which we have to be doing sometimes, just embellishing, just embellishing, of course, just embellishing the nature, embellishing the nature, embellishing the natural habitat of the environment of the civilization. Because in the public, it's always good to have a little bit of the good embellishments, public sphere. And we have to, as much as we can, we have to embellish and we have to create, and we have added responsibilities, duties, and obligations in the public which are not concorded. If I would have stayed home, I would have not had the same responsibilities, duties, and obligations. So I guess we're just gonna turn and go straight on the carry, go up. Well, we're gonna go south, but I decided to go towards the sun, chase the sun. I guess sunset to sunrise. Tomorrow we're gonna try to get sunrise or sunset, and we're gonna try, if you see, I guess we're gonna clean the room. Tomorrow's Friday, Sabbath beginning, and that's how we got, and that's what we gotta get doing, man. So as I encourage all to work out, train, exercise, and saluting the firefighters, butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, and electricians, the plumbers, all those involved in the production, distribution of food. Gotta send some loving, to those fast food workers now, flipping some of those burgers, cheeseburgers, hamburgers, those salads, making preparation of the salads, making preparation of the fries, coffee, pizzas, all in the fast. Whether you're food security, all food security workers, I put it in the general term of umbrella, all general food security workers, from the fast food workers got to get on that go, and they're delivering some food, or you got some drivers there, and some of those drivers on the go, and drivers as I rock and roll, and financially stressed but still joyous, happy here driving these special military grade boots, and these military grade boots that I'm driving, is something that I have to get doing, and something that I have to rock and roll with, and that's how we got, and that's how we do for that, and that's how we're gonna get on that rock and roll, for the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, and the firefighters, and all those involved in the production, distribution of food, and all those, of course, they gotta get going on that, That's what we gotta get doing, man. Always for the firefighters, plumbers, butchers, electricians, the bakers, the nurses. Towards the sun. Towards the sun we go. Instead of turning south, we could have turned south. That's south, so that's north. Now we're going north, you know. South and north, you know. South and north, south and north, south and north with that. That's what we got. And yeah, hot. Yesterday was hot, but not today. Today's not that hot. And just gotta get on those steps sometimes. You know, I always say your fitness journey, my fitness journey begins today, and we gotta, you know, do second chances, third chances. I guess I'm starting the fourth time I'm restarting in the past 11 years. When I moved, 2015. When I got out of my depression, when I survived COVID. I survived COVID between February 2020 and March 2020. It was really hardcore. When I had COVID, I remember having COVID, of course. I was like sick, death, and diseased, and full of disease in me. And I thought I was gonna die. I thought it was my last. Yes, and I guess this summer now, after all the trauma, the scars, the sun shining, piercing those clouds, and that is something which we have to do, and that is something which we have to appellate, you know, integrally, of course, in the circumstantial planning that we are, and in all the life forms that we encounter with the flora, the fauna, and you know, we have to get a mass public Space, Health and Wellness Rehabilitation Act, join Canada and United States as we're going to fuse. And now I'm just going to delve into politics. I discussed enough about Asperger's, and I'm going to delve and go into my field, my realm, my domain, which due to Asperger's is where I excel at, you know, And I excel, of course, in rock and roll. Rock and roll, pharmacists, I go rock and roll, go up and down. Sun is shining, sun is setting. Every second you got that red. So, of course, it's rock and roll, sports and fitness, dancing is my favorite sport and fitness activity. Love to dance. And of course, geopolitics. So you gotta leave the baggage at the door. So when we're discussing geopolitics, you always have to, of course, remind and, of course, keep in memory, of course, this point that I predicted. Not as a seer necessarily, as somebody who's a seer, but of course I predicted that there's gonna be an international conflagration on the horizon. So I predicted that there's going to be an international conflagration within the next set of years, back in October, November 2019. In October, November 2019. You heard that correct. October, November 2019. You know, that's always what it is. And let me see which sandwich of the day we got. And let's see which sandwich of the day here. Today is Thursday. I ate, my anonymous friend made me one of the best salads I ever had, but it would be which one for $5? Not bad. It would be just too many sandwiches on Tuesday, but is it just one with nothing like that? Today's the twister. I guess $5 nowadays is pretty good. You got a super crocker, zinger twister. Oh, you got only 5 days. So today would be the twister, I guess. No, I'm not gonna eat. I'm good, and that's what we got to get doing with that, and that's what we gotta get doing with that, and that's what we have to get doing with the rock and roll, and it's something which you have to understand fully, you know. So back to geopolitics as we're gonna march towards the sun. So keep in mind that this is important, and I got proof. I posted even my small videos online. I predicted what's happening now back in 2019, in October. November 2019, I predicted that there was going to be an international conflagration on the horizon. And so I created and produced a workout training program system designed and made to go hand in hand with such a scenario as the aforementioned, the scenario which, of course, I pronounced in 2019, So, of course, that is something which we have to understand, and we have to understand fully. It's something that we gotta get that rock and roll, you know. That's nice. Somebody's got, look at that. That's one of my favorites. So that one, whoever did that one, maybe a multiple of artists, that is really good. That is a really nice one. I guess the children are innocent, you know, and they're innocent and they're loving, and that's something which I gotta be appellative about, and that's the appellation, you know. Gotta salute the firefighters, salute the truckers. Gotta get it on the go. Those machines, see, we need new machines, salute. Those are athletes, please, millionaires, billionaires. Finance them some massage therapy session, they need it more than me. Across the 63, the workers of our empire, salutations. To those who pick up the garbage, the compost, the recycling, and of course all the firefighters, the butchers, the nurses, the doctors, and all the plumbers, you know, that is what it is, and that is what it is, you know, and that is what it is with the rock and roll 24/7 for the butchers, the firefighters, the plumbers, the electricians. That's what it is with that, eh? So that is what we're gonna get doing with the drill, you know. Always 24/7 for the plumbers, hey, salutations. Those who pick up the garbage are gonna pick up the compost. I always gotta admire for them. Let's unite, fuse my way best. Keep in mind that I predicted what's happening now back in 2019. In 2019, I predicted that there's gonna be an international conflagration. An international conflagration, which I predicted, and of course I predicted this international conflagration back in 2019 in October, November. So I predicted that international conflagration back in 2019, and that's what it is with that, and that's what I predicted it, you know. So back that I predicted, of course, that international conflagration, it is something which, of course, we have to fully remind and fully be appellative about. In all the circumstantial, I'm laughing because I said that I predicted it, but I also can say that I have hope and that I just saw myself actually making a living after many, many years of study analysis from being commissioned to do geopolitical strategy and theorizing, because at that I'm good at. Sometimes socializing, I'm not that good, and other things of a social nature, I'm not that good. I have more difficulties of a social nature, but of course, that's my work. Rock and roll, geopolitics, sports, and fitness. So keep that in mind. I predicted what's happening now back in 2019, October specifically, and I showed it on my small videos. You can check this week and last week I posted. I'm gonna keep posting coming days, weeks, and months ahead. Small videos that you can see from 5 and 6 years ago, where I'm day 11, day 22, day 33, day 44, but it starts with day 0, day 1 in my World War III scenario, which commenced October 17, 2019, right a few months before COVID. Look at those beauties, so beautiful. So I also made a workout training program system designed to go hand in hand with such a scenario. So that's what I'm good at, really. It's a special interest. So besides that, you know, we lack certain qualities of a more social nature. We have these difficulties with aspects, you know, diversion, but of course we have to fully appellate that. So of course the fact is that I predicted it, and I have proof in a general manner. However, I have to state that what I did not predict was that there was gonna be there's gonna be a derailment, a deterioration, a crisis with Canada. So the Canadian United States crisis, I did not predict. Beautiful flowers right here, look at those. So I did not predict that there's gonna be an escalation of the trade war and that there's gonna be a deterioration of relations with the US. That I did not predict. So this is new for me as well. I did not predict the re-election of Donald Trump. Love you, crows, as well. I did not predict the re-election of Donald Trump. I did not. I did not predict the re-election of Donald Trump. I did not predict the re-election. I was doing it more international, universal. Because when I predicted that there's going to be an international conflagration, Donald Trump was just finishing his first mandate, right? He got elected the first time in 2016. Well, actually 2015 November. He entered in 2016. So when I predicted international conflagration, that was in October 2019. So he was still president until 2020, right? Well, actually, for 4 more months, what have you, right? 4 more months, in a few weeks, I guess. Actually, less, but precise, whatever the case, estimation. But he was still president. And in 2018, Granddaddy Trump, you made the mistake to impose tariffs on Canadian aluminum and steel. Now, you know I would have voted for Biden or Kamala. Well, we're not enemies. And as much as I understand, because the geopolitical realities, I guess I understand them better than a lot, better than most, because of my Asperger's. That is my special interest. So I do 24/7. I do hours and hours a day. Even today I delayed my march to go marching for my workout. Of course, that I was doing geopolitical theorizing and analysis. That's what it is. So of course that's what it is, and that's how we go. And that's what we have to do from now on, as we are today in August 14, 2025, with me having predicted what has happened since a few years, and in the past years, of course. So I predicted what's happening now in a general manner. Right? In a general manner. Not an overall manner. Again, in a general manner. So, as my prediction has become reality in many ways, and you can check again, because I have proof. So I have proof, So I have proof of work. I have the videos online. It started in October 2019. And before that, Donald Trump made the mistake to impose tariffs on Canadian aluminum and steel. And that's why I got those red gloves in the backpack, red backpack that I'm carrying now. Because I started challenging Donald Trump to fight me in a boxing match on the Canadian-US border. On the Canadian-US border. Since Donald Trump made that mistake to impose tariffs on Canadian aluminum and steel, and now to take and escalate the tariffs. And of course, I will for us to build the 4. But before I discuss for us what I will to build the 4, I will to discuss a very important confluence. With that, and that's how I gotta get doing with that, and that's how we gotta get on that drill, to get it on the go with that. And we gotta get some of that hydration, and because it's hot, and we gotta constitute, of course, the present for the future, how we're going to find solutions. So the point is that I predicted what's happening now. I did not predict that there's going to be an international conflagration. I predicted that, correction. I predicted that there was going to be an international conflagration, a World War III, but not that there's going to be a deterioration of relations between Canada and the United States. So between Canada and the United States, there's the helicopter again. How fast, how far are we? It's going, I know that it's going southeast. It's east and south it's going south and east, looking like it's going south and east. And of course, we need to rehabilitate our brothers and sisters who've lost their liberty, and to give second chances to our brothers and sisters who so, of course, will to be given second chances, third chances, fourth chances, to rehabilitate. That's something which we got. And since the National Guard was deployed, I could be commissioned to do a little bit of that on my own propositions is for the North American Collective to fuse the FBI and the RCMP and to create the Imperial Republic Police Force, the Imperial Republic Police Force, the Imperial Republic Police Force for SSD principle, totally integrated with the Dragon Army for the 63, the SSD Legion, and to create and fuse our security force and all apparatus, but with a mass concordium that we're going to fuse, and we're going to open up mass resources and mass territory to a mass population kind of 11 times bigger than our population, not 11, 9 times. But of course, and hoping that, and of course, this we're gonna have to do a great population financing for the rehabilitation of our brothers and sisters who need rehabilitation, or who have the volition, the will to also rehabilitate, to and it's the construction workers who build that. So we gotta salute, start, and find some construction workers, because the construction workers build the social housing and the buildings, and the construction workers, they built all the buildings from this one here to the skyscrapers. It's the construction workers on those steel toes and on those cranes first and foremost. The financing money is a unit of exchange to service to enable a certain purpose. So without being too sophisticated academic, of course, that is, of course, the parlance which need be, and the complementary which we need to do together, of course. So that is just something which we have to do, you know. So that is something which we have to complement on the conclusion of the things which we have, and that is something which you have to point, of course, a solution which we got to focus first and foremost on the solution and the solutions which we have to do, you know. And that's why we got to get drilling on the go, and it starts with me now with discussing the DRT and saying again that I predicted what's happening now, which I have in a general manner, and of course to the fact, of course, that I'm gonna call, because I served twice in the past lives in 2 different wars in the same United States Army, 156 years apart. I served in the United States Armed Forces, and so as I'm a Quebecer, Canadian, North American, Canadian American. This is my home, and the North American Collective, and the coming of the 63 Imperial Republic, let it be perpetually. So we're gonna fuse, and as we go for our empire, God bless our empire, God is kiss, God bless, God is kiss, God bless, God is GODDSS kiss, God bless, God is kiss, as we're gonna go on that rock and roll, always for the 63. That we have, of course, to fully integrate and fully appreciate something which we're going to do, a new concordium in a democratic, republican, mass public-private partnership centric, and implement the total new 911 dragon integrated North American protocols for total rehabilitation, total citizen integration, and security and service and defense. For total SSD, security, service, and defense, and all, of course, the things which we have to do together in the North American civilizational complex, as we have, and as we go on that drill to get it, of course, appellated versus some marching towards the sun. So I haven't predicted what's happening now back in 2019, and I have been able to continue to challenge Donald Trump to a boxing match since 2018. So I will to build, and again, a message to the National Guard deployed in Washington, D.C. Sportsmanship, 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 sportsmanship. Just like a game of gridiron, I wouldn't be good at playing, but I would be good, I guess, at refereeing. Refereeing, arbiter, and, you know, arbitrary referee, and I'm watching you like a hawk, because we got that coast to coast, ocean to ocean, and for years and years and years it has always been for the 63 and all ALL who come to join us here from all over the world, because we constitute a new collective civilizational complex, which we constitute together. This new civilizational complex we constitute together in the appellation, of course, of the forces constituent to our new civilizational complex, which is not fully divorced from Western civilization, but is distinct. So it's not fully divorced from Western civilization, but is distinct. So being that it's not fully divorced, but is distinct, and we constitute this new civilizational complex, we have to, of course, getting on the go with that to get it now, and get it on the go and getting on the now. So that's all we have to get doing with that, and we have to get doing on the go, hey? So that's just what we have to do, you know, and that's just have to get doing with that. We have to get on the go. That's why you have to get on the love, and it's something, you know, which it's always delicate. So that's why, you know, just sportsmanship to all police forces, security forces, if we're gonna have to, you know, maybe if it's nuclear war, because potentially it could be a nuclear, right? It could be nuclear, and we don't know what's gonna happen tomorrow with Putin, but what if China decides tomorrow to invade Taiwan? It's an unresolved conflict, and that was exactly my prediction. You know, they had solidified their alliance. It's maybe in Putin's interest to maybe perhaps show us the middle finger continuously, and he's been showing us to the West the middle finger with one hand, and maybe now with Xi Jinping they're gonna show us 4 middle fingers with both the left and the right starting tomorrow. you know. Maybe that's what they were planning, or that's what, you know, it's going to be. I hope not. I don't like violence, you know. Myself, I don't like violence, and that's just how I rock and roll with that. And it's of course always for the DRT, death row fusion theory, which we need to discuss, and it's part of my complex of theories, the trinity of theories, that is, the CIT with it, and the EFT, and let's build a fort together and get that coast to coast, ocean to ocean, and to the National Guard, you know, just sportsmanship. And if you're in a position, you know, to take, for my brothers and sisters who for XYZ reasons, you know, last became addicted to drugs, and I don't know about this fentanyl. This fentanyl to me smells more like a bioweapon than an actual drug. If it totally does that much harm to the human body and the human being, it sounds more like a bioweapon than a drug to me. But then I don't do drugs, and maybe I did prior to spring 2014. I used to live over there. That's where my old neighborhood begins. Nothing that I will to go back to. It's just that, of course, we got a little bit of sun. So I guess if I turn and see how much sun I got, that's what we gotta get doing on that drill, you know. So if I go towards the sun directly and I pass through my old neighborhood, it's just like passing through. Nothing that I really need to, and I don't will by volition, by intention, you know, to go back to my neighborhood because of XYZ reasons, because I died, I'm being reborn, and I need some loving too, some of that good loving, you know. Love me, rainbow snake, black and white, 18 plus, you know, not a problem. And my scars need some loving too, and so hopefully somebody making some good loving now across the 63, across Canada, coast to coast, because otherwise what are we fighting to say for? Wall Street, they got their paper, got their money, got their tools, got their mansions, they're good, you know. I ain't worried about that. And we got to rehabilitate our population, and we got to get that Democratic Republican going and get rid of the border and implement my DRT. So let's build the 444, and I guess I will be going to my old neighborhood and gonna be passing through a little bit of that rock and roll here. And just be careful, don't leave so much stuff, because sometimes there's kids, you know, and of course the children can of course get a little bit of that sanitation for the children, you know. Sometimes there's children that pass, and you get a little bit of that sanitation rock and roll. And look at that beautiful red for the, it's a good color right there. Wow, that is a beauty. Good red color, so we got a salute for the red, and for the bakers, the truckers, the butchers, the nurses, the doctors, and the firefighters, plumbers, electricians, the bakers, all those bus drivers. How many buses now? And of course, how many truckers now going with bacon, cheese, milk, honey? They're transporting all the food products, which are of course to be transported on the go. And of course, think about that. Now we're in the interroute, and here's kind of where my old neighborhood begins. So this is kind of the mark demarcating my new neighborhood, and my old neighborhood begins right here. Right at this, so once I cross the street there, I'm in my own neighborhood. Again, nothing that I will to go back to. And you know, I know my brothers and sisters, sometimes they need some help. I got my own help as an ASPE. You know, I don't require much support in such matters, but of course, just don't leave shards or glass, broken glass, because you got children sometimes passing with the family, such as those children who might pick up, you know, and for their health, safety, and we got to rehabilitate certain areas of our urban cities, and we need to pass together via the Dragon Army New 9-1 protocol, integrated with all existing institutions and organizations, and mass rehabilitation and Public Health Emergency Act, you know. Public Health Emergency Act. We gotta do a Public Health Emergency Act, and of course issue for those my brothers and sisters who will to get their second chance in a shelter, and maybe we could credit some thousands of dollars, you know. Credit some food, say, hey, here you go, for a year you got your whole rent is paid for a year, you have food security for a year, you have rent, right? Let's give rent, let's give shelter for a year, clean health products, shelter, and let's give some food stamps across Canada, United States, joint public-private partnership for the fast foods. You know, we got those fast foods, we got Burger King, we got McDonald's, we got Wendy's, we got Harvey's, etc., 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 etc. You know, just issue a credit for a full meal course. I say credit in today's value, what you could get for $20 a day. $20 a day, you can split it morning, afternoon, right? If we can rehabilitate, to see if they can rehabilitate. That would be a program, and set up webcams in all the social housing, public-private partnership with Flock. I guess it's one of the big ones in security, for total security, total surveillance, total security. We need this mass public-private partnership together. And my brothers and sisters, you know, who are incarcerated, you need to get your rehabilitation. You know? You need to get those rehabilitation. And of course, that rehabilitation has to be done. The rehabilitation has to be concorded. And I'm always happy when I see my brothers and sisters, my cousins there from all over the world who come, and they were holding hands, and that gives me hope. Because to get some of that loving as I march now towards the sun, I'm already in my own neighborhood. I used to live in a moldy place there. It's like a tight prison cell, and tight prison type of cell, you know, underground and moldy, small, like a prison cell, very small. Even the bathroom was small. I didn't have a bathtub, and it was like the kitchen was in it, you know. So that is always something which I admire from where I live now. It's much better, but can't complain. I wish I could give my anonymous friend a good house. And let's build the four together. Let's build as a public-private partnership, as a means, as a fruition for our collective North American, Canada, United States Union. And Mexico is part of North American complex, or what I call the Great North American Civilizational Complex, as well as is Jamaica, Haiti, Dominican Republic. Cuba is a paradox, but they're also part of it, right? And to rehabilitate and to mass rehabilitate my brothers and sisters who lost their liberty, the incarcerated population, if you will. And that's something which we always got to do, you know, because it's 24/7 for the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the firefighters, the plumbers, the electricians, and all those involved in the production, distribution of food. That is just something how we got to rock and roll with it, and that is just something how we got to get doing with that. And something when we have to do the appellation now is we have to get that commission, and we got to get my first commission, of course, for a major geopolitical work, you know, something which we have to get doing with that, and got to get on that truckers. See here, when I come here, it's always meditating about the north and the south, because they're going maybe to the border, to the U.S. border that way. I'm going north. So how many trucks are going now across the 63, maybe with bacon, with cheese, with eggs, with butter, all the condiments, all the goods that are now, of course, being transported. There's many being transported now, and, you know, across the collective, across North America, Canada, United States. And sometimes we think for value, but we have civilization really is a privilege, to have running water, electricity. Thank Hydro-Quebec workers of the past, of course, who build the aqueducts across the North American collective, thousands and thousands of kilometers and miles across Canada, United States, across the 63, of aqueducts, of filtration systems, of course, of electronics, all the linkings with our banking system, of course, all the electronics, the 3G towers, the 4G tower, the 5G towers, of course, which enable us to communicate, which enable our communication, appellation. And of course, I'm going to be turning on the other street as we're going to go towards the sun, and of course, we're going to take it by the mountain, but we're not going to go by the mountain, on the mountain necessarily, but we might, of course, pass on the side, of transversely on the side for that, and that's what we're gonna get doing on that, you know. So something which we have to get drilling. So maybe it's on that side that we're gonna turn, of course, on the side for the go, and that is just something which we have to appellate, of course, because sometimes just being in the moment is what matters the most, you know. Sometimes it's just what matters the most is being in the moment. And we got all my brothers and sisters here from all who come here in the coming of our empire. We're a new civilizational complex. We're a big family, and when I crossed Canada coast to coast, I established a grand esprit de corps with my fellow Canadians. And being that we're a big family here, and maybe that way is closed, and I have to go the other way, then not the problem. But just here in my own neighborhood, you know, I wonder sometimes, how many years have I lived there? Not important. I lived in a small basement. It was a basement underground, and very small, very moldy, maybe a few years. And I moved and changed my life. You know, maybe I would have been, you know, homeless on the streets, or dead, or in jail, or became maybe a criminal underworld lord, a criminal underworld organized lord, a criminal organized the ground lord. Maybe I would have become a criminal underground organized lord, and that's what it is with that. That's what we gotta get doing with that, and that's what we gotta get doing on that go, man, you know? So we're gonna turn here, and that's what we gotta get doing with that, and we're gonna get doing on that go rock and roll, you know. It's a good thing which we have, and we're gonna get it for loving, and for the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, and the doctors, the firefighters, the plumbers, electricians. And I love those yellow flowers there. They always give me a little bit of that good loving, you know. So that is just something which we gotta do, and I love me some of that red, and the red and white flowers there, the pot is so good. So back to what I was saying, this color is kind of nice too. This kind of creamy, you know, makes me crave some ice cream, to be honest. Yeah, it just makes me crave some ice cream. I guess I got some chocolate when I get back. I got some Canadian cherries, feast on a budget, always on the budget. And again, in Montreal, Hawk Island, you know, Island of the Hawk. Let's build the fort together. 444. I will to build on the Canadian-US border. For me and Donald Trump, we're going to inaugurate it, fight in a boxing match. Let's build the North American People's Imperial Coliseum. The North American People's Imperial Coliseum, or the Imperial People's Imperial Republic's People's Coliseum. Because we're going to fuse Canada and United States. Let's build the biggest ever mass structure on the Canadian-US border to be 11 times bigger than the Harbor Ball. The Harbor Ball was, of course, known as the the Harbor Ball was played, one of my favorite Super Bowls, top 5 Super Bowls, even though my 49ers 9-9 in San Francisco lost by 3 points. But of course, Harbor Ball, aka Super Bowl 47, has several nicknames, aka Bro Ball, is one of my top 5 favorite Super Bowls. And of course, my 49ers lost. And let's build that big, massive structure on the Canadian-US border to be 11 times bigger than that Coliseum arena known as the Harbor Ball. Well, where the Harbor Ball was played. Harbor Ball, the surname Harbor, aka Super Bowl 47, which again has several nicknames, aka Bro Ball. So let's build it's now called, that arena is called Caesars Superdome, and it changed names several times, just like I'm changing my name, of course, and I changed it officially for me, but still got to pay that paper to change it. But of course it is the Harbor Ball, or one of my top 5 Super Bowls played, and the Caesars Superdome. Before that it was known as the Mercedes-Benz, and before that it was known as the Louisiana. Louisiana. Then it changed name from Louisiana Arena or Dome to Mercedes-Benz Dome, and from Mercedes-Benz now finally to Caesars Superdome. It's in New Orleans, Louisiana, and several Super Bowls events occurred there. One of it is Super Bowl 47, which is one of my top 5 Super Bowls. And paradoxically, it's when my Niners lost, but still it's one of my favorite. The first 3 is of course when my 49ers won, and then the top 5 is also one of Super Bowls where it's not related to my 49ers, but it's paradoxically when Brady won the 6th ring and the last Super Bowl with the Patriots dynasty, closing the circle with the Patriots. And of course it's the one, of course, where we got to get on that dimension where he and led the Patriots to a victory. 13-3. It was the lowest ever scoring Super Bowl. Lowest ever scoring. 16 points only total. 13-3. In the first 3 quarters, it was only like 6 points. 6 points. 6 points scored. Only 6 points. 6 points scored, you know. Only 6 points. So of course, it ended 13-3. 13 plus 3 is 16. So the Patriots won 13-3, right? 13-3. So that is just one of my top 5. So let's build that big, massive, biggest ever sports arena complex ever built in the history of the world by Canada, United States, joint on the Canadian-US border. It's part of a public-private partnership for Empire. I credit some trillions of kisses, some massages, some rock and roll to the construction workers and all willingly loving friends with benefits only. Pledge your allegiance, thou art family. And that is what we have to do, and that's what we have to appellate. Parallel, of course, to that is that I will to build a forgotten goddess temple. Forgotten, G-O-D-D-S-S, goddess, because it's God bless, goddess kiss. Our empire, goddess bless. Goddess, G-O-D-D-S-S, goddess bless. I credit my surviving COVID and other illnesses and managing my Asperger's and being alive, having survived so much, thanks to the forgotten goddess, G-O-D-D-S-S. Thanks to the forgotten goddess, of course. That is my accreditation, and that is, of course, yours truly what I do, and that is my appellation that I will to build the forgotten goddess, G-O-D-D-S-S. G-O-D-D-E-S-S. Forgotten Goddess Temple. Goddess Temple, Forgotten Goddess Temple. Forgotten Goddess Temple. And the pyramid. House of the Dragon. The scarlet, crimson or scarlet. Our shades of red, you know. Shades of red, scarlet and red, you know, are something which we have to get doing on that, and we have to get doing on that drill, you know. So being that is the scarlet and red, it's a shade of red that we have to get doing on that. And my fellow citizen cross with the dog, because it's a bit on the side that I have to cross on the other side. So yeah, let's build the North American people's, actually the Imperial Coliseum, and of course build the Imperial Coliseum when we have to, and that's just something when we have to do, and we have to appellate and of course fully integrate all our manners, which we are, and we appellate all the things when we got to adjudicate together, you know. And the pyramid, which is the House of the Dragon, this will be scarlet red, and that is scarlet and crimson are basically shades of my favorite color, red, which I'm wearing often, even today, on my head, in the back, and on my upper body. So, yeah. And the other one, Forgotten Goddess Temple, and the House of the Dragon, the Imperial People's Coliseum, and the fourth one, the Rainbow People's Palace for my fellow neurodivergent community, whether Aspies, and also for my fellow LGBTQ people who are members of the LGBTQ community, as I am the androgynous pansexual community. And of course, that is what we have to do. So just fundamentally where we are now in all the aspects, of course, of the civilizational complex, where we are today, of course, to look at these beautiful flowers here, just tight cuties, just bright, of those bright flowers, and that garden also, there looks a little bit of that good gardening. So this massive Forgotten Goddess temple we're gonna have, she doesn't need me to build or us to build her temple, because she's got the pyramids and her brother's the sun, so I'm a nobody, just a piece of dust, and that's just how we got to do, and that's just how we got to do on this march here. Happy, joyous now, and I got a big smile on my face, but I'm also stressed financially, but paid my rent, paid my electricity bill, got food, got some coffee left, and thank you to my anonymous friend, and who wasn't my friend because of the money, you know. Definitely wasn't my friend because of the money, because I never had any, and that's just how we're gonna rock and roll it from now on. And I will propose again, deadline September 11th, last deadline, September 11th, and I don't remember where I was during the attacks, but supposedly I was finishing high school, because I have journals, right? So supposedly in the journals that I've reread, because I kept journals from for years and years, so supposedly I was finishing high school, finishing high school. So I was in class actually, but I don't, because my memory, you know, it's blackouts. It's like before 2014 spring, it's try to remember, and it's just like I'm like black, you know, just so whatever the case may be, today is really, I live carpe diem since I survived COVID, although I have hope for the future, and I guess maybe suffering, struggling, I guess I living there in a moldy prison type of small cell. Now, it wasn't a prison cell per se, it was a underground basement for which I paid rent. And I know that I was there for at least a few years because I had some documents from paying rent, actually, because I never missed paying rent once. Never missed financial stress. And I bet that if I go to check my so I spent some years with a foot in the libraries, a foot in the streets. I bet that if I go retrieve from the National Bibliothèque et Archives Nationales, the National Library, all the books, of course, that I've read, and that I rented, because I rented from between 2014 and 2019 for that 5-year period. If I go from summer to summer, I could guarantee you that most of the books, 90+% were related somehow to geopolitics. If not more than 90% were related somewhat to geopolitics, whether politics, history, and of course all these archaeological things and philosophy what we have related to geopolitics. Because geopolitics is a major universally environment. It's all international geopolitics. It's from the Greek word geos and politics is from politikos, from a polity as nation states, right? And geos from a geographical location, geopolitics. So to study the interaction between nation states, culture, civilizations, and geopolitical regions, geographical regions, and different movements. For example, such as this, if we have different movements, we can take the socialist movement, or the movement here relevant for the North American Collective, the MAGA movement. I'm open for anybody commissioning me. We're gonna do a Dragon, maybe 3-part series. Could start for 3-part series on MAGA. I can do, hour-long videos on my take, philosophical, MAGA. Not being a MAGA myself, not being a supporter, but I guess being that I was born 3 times post 76. Once as a woman, twice as a man. George Patton, read Glass Darkly. He didn't mention in that poem where he wrote about his reincarnation. George Patton, the general, believed in reincarnations just like I do, but I was his wife once and he was my wife once, because sometimes I was born a man, a woman, a man, a woman, a woman, a man in my past incarnations, previous incarnations, past lives. But of course, my previous incarnations, past lives, now of course, I am here fully androgynous and fully Aspie, fully, perhaps not yet healed, I guess, from scars, trauma, and financial stress, but joyous, smiling nonetheless, because I know somebody's gonna hug like you never hugged before is the main message, blah, blah, blah. Friends with benefits only, pledge your allegiance. I don't will to waste nobody's time, I don't will to waste nobody's time, don't waste mine, and that's all we got. And yeah, commission, work on MAGA. Could do some. I know a little bit, and I know somewhat. I could do some more research about it extensively. I guess we can make a deal, commission, and I could do just work on specific on MAGA, because the point is that we have Donald Trump as president again. So for the second term, and we have unprecedented trade war, which it began in the first, but what I did not predict was that it's going to be a trade war with Canada, They're Canada, so that's what it is with that, and that's what we gotta get doing for the drill and for the go. And who owns these buildings? We gotta get a bit of social housing and Dragon Army Reclamation, North American Property Reclamation Act, as we're gonna write for our empire and fuse and get the DRT, the North American Public-Private Partnership Reclamation Act. Property Reclamation Act for both Canada and the United States for the 63, in order, of course, to rehabilitate the building and mass transfer of the property for the Dragon Army Collective and the NACWP, the North American Collective Workers' Party, a Democratic Republican being 50-50, Democratic Republican and North American Collective Workers' Party, the North American Collective Workers' Party with that, and that's how we gotta get doing with that, and we gotta get doing on that rock and roll really good, and that's how we got here, and we gotta get on that dimensions, and that's how we gotta get drilled, man. And now we're going towards the sunset and changing all of that position, always red and rising, red and setting is the sun, and we're gonna get a little bit of that geopolitics right now. So I predicted, of course, that I predicted, of course, that is practicing some French. I predicted, of course, that is the conflagration that's coming now. We gotta get it on the go, and we gotta get it on the go with that, and that's what we gotta get doing it on now here. We got to get doing on that sunrise and sunset, and sometimes we just gotta start our fitness journey, and start our fitness journey for the go, and start our fitness journey for now, and start our fitness journey whenever we can. Turn your heads left and right when you cross the street, and sometimes always when we got the opportunity to rehabilitate and to work out and to get it on to do with that, and that's what I gotta get doing, man. Sometimes which just takes a lot of work, and I lost between 80 and 93 pounds, and that's how we have to get doing and get done. So I predicted what's happening now in a general manner. What I did not predict was that there's gonna be an international conflagration, a dispute, and a growing tensions and deteriorations of relations with the United States. So now you need to say yes to this following statement. You cannot say no. In the terms of our foreign affairs, not domestic internal affairs, this is reciprocity. This is in reciprocity for both the United States and Canada combined. So you cannot argue, you cannot say no to this following statement. Look at those beautiful flowers. Beautiful flowers with that. Beautiful flowers with that. I mean, that's what it is with that. So beautiful flowers with that, beautiful flowers with that, and beautiful flowers for the go, and beautiful flowers for the now. So it's something which, of course, we appellate and we completely fully integrate in our psyche, in our being, that our main interest as Canadians, and this is reciprocal, of course. This is reciprocal, you know. It's always a good reciprocity, and this is the best, most cordial that we have to strive for when it comes to foreign policy objectives, and it has to be number one priority when it comes to foreign affairs for both Canada, and this applies for the United States vis-a-vis us, and for us vis-a-vis Canada. Paradoxically, we must strive to have the best, most cordial economic, social, financial, political, military, social, cultural, financial, security relations with the United States, and the United States vis-a-vis us, to have the best, most cordial economic, social, military, social, cultural, financial relations with us. So that is just the reciprocity. You cannot say no to that, right? You cannot object and say no, right? You cannot even say maybe. You cannot even say maybe. What you can say is, of course, yes, 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 yes. So that you can say. So that is not, it's just like the pi symbol. The pi symbol represents a numerical value. It's 3.1416. It never changes. A variable in mathematics is something that changes, of course. And of course, it's not, of course, a composition, of course, where we have to. And of course, to get it on the go, to understand fully that it is just like the N, the letter N, the pi N, like that, two heads. And that's where our coming empire is going to be, two-headed, two-faced. The N symbol represents, of course, a mathematical value. The N, it's a letter, right? It's Normandy, normal, natural, neurodivergence, or Normandy. See? How fast are they going? And where they're going, or they seem to be deviating. So those two helicopters now are they're going west-south, right? They're going southwest, right? Southwest. They're going southwest, maybe towards the border, southwest. That I know, that I can know. I don't know exactly how fast they're going, but I don't know, of course, how fast they're going with that, but they're going southwest. So, of course, knowing that they're going southwest is something which we have, of course, to do and to appellate, the commission and the propositions, of course, of all the states where we are to be integrated, of course, in the North American collective civilization that we have, of course, to get fully understand it and get some of that LOV, of course, for the go. So that is just something which we appellate, of course, for the Concordium, And interesting enough, because of my past lives when I served in the U.S. Army, now a rock and roll cadence came for the National Guard. We are the National Guard. Yeah, we stand on guard. We are the National Guard. Yeah, that's a military cadence. Stand on guard, National Guard. Stand on guard, National Guard. See a beautiful sun right there. That's what we do for the drilling, and that's what we go for the appellation right there. See, look at that beautiful sun. That's what it is for the go, and we got some nice rocks there. So just in my mind, just now when the helicopters passed, interestingly enough, because I served in the United States military in the previous incarnation and past life, of course, I was chanting National Guard cadence. And of course, the Dragon Army is a binational love affair. Democratic Republican affair. Are you gonna get that 50-50? Granddaddy Trump and Carney. And it's now 1 is gonna be 13. 13, just like the original by Providence. 13, I hear citizen declare the king is absent. It's time for the Republic, it's time for the Imperial Republic of the Union of the Perpetual 63 Union. And that's what we need to do. So basically, of course, what it is in the fundamental aspects of all the reality of we have as the interposition and the intermingling, of course, that my past lives incarnation, when I saw those helicopters, I had a cadence for the National Guard. It was a long one, but if I was to chant it, I guess it would have been continuous. It would have been continuous, and it would have not been stopped. So, of course, all the appellation. Now we're gonna cross on the other side. And of course, the Forgotten Goddess Temple, I will it to build 11 times bigger than this. To be built 11 times bigger than this structure. The Forgotten Goddess Temple, I will to build it 11 times bigger than this structure. And this is an oratory. And here in Montreal, Colin, you can check the beautiful sunset. Sunset or sunrise, but I already said it's sunset, so you already know what's going on. But that's what it is with that. And that's why you gotta get going with that, you know. Yeah, man. Yeah, you know, so you can see a big beauty, you know. See. So I got, and that's what I do. And that's how I gotta get that rock and roll. It's always 24/7 for the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, and the doctors, the firefighters, all the electricians, and all those involved in the production, distribution of food. And that's why I gotta get some of that good loving. And 30 million, I'm asking for 156 times more than that. And 30 million, that's what that says, 30.8 million. Asking for 30 billion for the Forgotten Goddess Temple, and that's what we got, and that's what we gotta get doing with that, and that's what we gotta get that cadence, of course, where we get it on the drill, you know. That is what it is with that, and this is what we're gonna get, you know. Look at that. Anywhere in the I know. See, yeah. So we're gonna go actually all the way to the other side. All the way to the other side. So my will to build, of course, the Forgotten Goddess Temple. To be 11 times bigger, of course, than this one, than this structure here, you know. Hail the king, hail the king, hail the king, hail the king. That's my king. Now rises and now sets, and that's why we're gonna go drill it. It won't stay long, but we're gonna go on the side and salute the king, you know. Just passing through, and here's Montreal. We're gonna get back to geopolitics a bit, but since of course there's a lot of people here, you know, we gotta get on that drill now. And there's of course the sun, see? Yeah. Red is rising, red is setting. Yeah. Gotta get it to that. Now we gotta get it on the go. Look at that. And now you guys, you know, this is a workout. Workout. And that's why I gotta get those drills, you know.
Tu veux là-bas avec ton vélo?
Hot. Keep your distance. Keep your distance. Keep your distance. Keep your distance.
You are one of those people. I don't know the team CEO.
Yeah. That was fun. Yeah. Just going up. Seeing the sun. That was it. That's what it is, man, you know. That's the do, and that's the being, you know. Look at that. Oh yeah, nice flowers there. It's nice, eh? I love it. So now we're gonna go back to geopolitics, but yeah, man, this is fun. That's what it is with that, and that's what we gotta get on the go. Be careful when you run there because there's sometimes children, you know. Children and cross the stairs, so just stay on the right, just like driving. Because you were running and you're taking all the spots, and I love to see fitness, but just keep quarters. Keep quarters. Keep quarters. Reminds me of a past life when I served in the US Army, and What a nice sunset. Wow. So now we're going to go into more technical, theoretical nuclear war possibilities. So the possibility of first nuclear strike, what does that entail? Russia has a system from the Soviet Union called the dead hand. And this is a system which is still operational. This system was made in a response to a possible nuclear strike. So this system is also automatic, right? So if there's a nuclear strike somewhere in the world, the dead hand, or it's a threat to Russia to not, is meant to respond. Of course, it's secretive. They don't know. What we do know is that they have approximately 5,000 nuclear warheads. So if they possess 5,000 nuclear warheads, and the YARS system can reach Canada, so it's 10,500 kilometers. So that's the technical capability. So from Montreal to Moscow is 8,500 kilometers. 8,500 kilometers. Look at those beauties. So look at those beauties. So the technical aspect now of a first strike is that we are in the reach, right? Montreal, even where I am now, because of the yards, we are in the reach of a tactical nuclear capable missile to strike right here in Montreal, right? So we would basically see it or hear the sound, because the speed of sound travels 30,000. We would hear, and we would hear the sound of it, right? We would see a flash. Now, if it's a nuclear strike on Montreal or Ottawa or Montreal or Washington D.C. or New York, because from Moscow to Montreal is 8,500 kilometers, right? So it's 8,500 kilometers from Montreal to Moscow. And this YARS, ICBM rocket, intercontinental ballistic missile, is 10,500. So the possibility is that we're in range, even further into Canada. But even if it's launched from Moscow, since from Moscow to Montreal is 8,500 kilometers, that means that we're within reach, even when we don't have the defense capabilities yet, right? That's why we have to get into the Golden Dome, and we have to put a hawk in it. Canada. That's why I made my statement, and I've been advocating for this before Trump got reelected. A total North American integrated satellite constellation, supercomputers based, total security service, total SSD, security service and defense complex, with total citizen integration and mass finance citizens fitness. Mass finance citizens fitness, of course, in the Concordium, in the appellation, of course, that it is. The mass financing of the North America civilizational complex, where we are, of course, integrated in the well-being and the wellness and the continuance of the North American population and our coming empire. We have to build the 44 tunnels have to be constructed as soon as possible. The 44 mass tunnels, which I'm going to reference in a bit. So this dead hand, it's a big problem. And just a few weeks ago, because I saw it in the news, there was activation of this old Soviet era radio, supposedly somehow from the 80s, connected with the dead hand system. It was on Vion, World is One, because I watched different news, from not just left, right, and center, but center, left, right, and center, and left, right, and center. Not just Canadian, but also from the United States and from Mexico and from Europe. And this one's called Vion, World is One News, 4 letters, WION, World is One, and there's a nice garden here. Wow, look at this beautiful garden. World is One is a more Indian-based, it's a Indian-based from India. Appellation with Indian-based, World is One. So of course that World is One, of course, is the one that was mentioning mostly in the news about this a few weeks ago. This special radio telecommunication broadcast relating to the Cold War period from the 80s. I think even they said 1984 or something. From 1984. I remember 1984 for some reason. 1984, right? That was formulated to go hand in hand with this relation to this dead hand system, which is a counter-strike basically system, which was built by the Soviets. But Russia was the main country of the Soviet Union, also known as the Soviet Empire. I love this, makes like ice cream. Yummy, yummy, yummy. But nonetheless, that is a first strike, a type of response to a first strike or to a nuclear strike in general. So we are vulnerable. That's why, of course, I advocate for the creation of to implement, of course, the Golden Dome. But we got to put a HAWK, H-A-W-K on it, just like we have to implement my Trinity theories and the Total Mobile Defense Theory, TMDT, the Total Mobile Defense Theory, the TMDT, the Total Mobile Defense Theory. When we add the fifth letter, fifth acronym, becomes an S, a system, that's when we implement the Total Mobile Defense Theory, the TMDT, right? The Total Mobile Defense Theory, the TMDT becomes a system when we implement it, when we put it into practice, into action. I cannot divulge too much about it because I developed it starting since 2017, and it is national, actually binational, Canada, United States, joint common coast to coast, ocean to ocean for the 63 always. Dominion and collective. Total security, total service, total defense. Total security, total service, total defense. Total security, total service, total defense. And of course for the total service, total defense, which you have to implement as a defensive collective strategy. And of course where we are now. So this total mobile defense theory I cannot discuss over much. Is actually made for binational for Canada, United States, and furthermore for NATO. So I'm calling for the public-private partnership Operation Northern Scorpion to be implemented. Operation Northern Scorpion to be implemented. Operation Northern Scorpion. Operation Northern Scorpion to be implemented, and Operation Northern Scorpio. Operation Northern Scorpio, of course, to be implemented with that, and that's what I gotta get doing on there for the implementation of the Operation Northern Scorpio, of course, to do it on the go and to do it on the appellation where we got to love it in the left and the right, and right here we have to do as soon as possible, but I cannot divulge too much about it because it's national security sensitive. And the other question in parallel is the fundamentals, co-equilibrium, that can only be discussed with high-ranking security apparatus members, generals of NATO, NATO generals, high-ranking David McGuinty and Minister of National Defense Pam Bondi and Pete Hegseth and Tulsi Gabbard, etc., because it's binational security matters, and with all the generals, top generals of the NATO member alliance. The TMDT, Total Mobile Defense Theory, is concocted binationally for North America, but it can be extended to the whole NATO complex, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, because we constitute an alliance, of course, in a North Atlantic Treaty Organization. We constitute that military alliance since 1947 or so, 1949, I guess. So back to what I was saying when I was discussing that we really have to get the Golden Dome because, of course, due to the fact that we're sensitive now to the national security matters, and we are within reach. If the YARS 24 can travel 10,500 kilometers, 10,500 from Montreal to Moscow is 8,500. So 10,500 minus 8,500, it's still 2,000 kilometers left, eh? So they can travel even deeper in the interior, even deeper in the interior. They can travel even deeper in the interior. So that is just the plateau, which of course you have to organize and concomitantly have, of course, to appellate. So being that it can travel so far, that's why the Golden Hawk Dome, the Golden Hawk, well, you put a hawk in it now, it's called Golden Dome, of course, project. But that's why we have to put a Golden Dome in it. A Golden Hawk, the Hawk, H-A-W-K, which the hawk, of course, is my totem bird. And of course, we see hawks. There's lots of hawks. So those are just the technical aspects of the traveling, the distance that it can travel. 10,000, of course, 10,500. 10,500. Wow. 10,500. That's a distance, eh? That's a distance. And it can travel that distance, 10,500. If I go by that side, wait, let me see. Yeah, I think by that side, if I go down, then yeah, I'm just gonna go down and start taking a left turn. So that is just the technical aspect of the travel distance. So that's why we have to build this dome, so that we would be able to intercept intercontinental ballistic missiles. And that's where my DRT comes in, the depth fusion theory. And now again I go to the same reciprocal. Of course, you have to accord it and say it, yes, 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 in the affirmative. You cannot negotiate with this again. This is just like the pi symbol. The pi mathematical symbol represents that proportionality. Of course, the pi number is a number that is represented by the two-headed, two-faced n. It's n, just like the letter normal. See, that's the river there. We're high up top the mountain there, up top Mount Royal, and now we're gonna go. Well, this is the whole Mount Royal proper, but now we're in Westmount, and now we're just gonna go down the stairs. Anybody want to finance that I go down and up these stairs, you know? Anybody wants to finance that I go up and down these stairs? You know, so that is just the concomitant aspect of all our theoretical civilizational complexes, as you can see here. Of course, we have to intermittently, and of course, we have to appellate all our conjugations where we are now. So that is why we have to get in the golden hot dome together, Canada and United States. So now this following statement, again, that is in many ways symbolic representative of the letter N, which represents the pi symbol, the two-headed N, two-faced, two-headed N. That's why coming Imperial Republican fusion, the fusion of Canada and United States will be a two-headed, two-faced, benevolent, and I guess sometimes punishing empire, benevolent and punishing empire, benevolent and punishing empire, benevolent and punishing empire. For X, Y, Z, and W situations, right? But benevolent nonetheless. So we are gonna take this public-private partnership. We're gonna do it together. So the pi number, the pi symbol represents a number which is always the relation between the circumference, and the diameter and the ratio. The ratio and the circumference of the circle, circle. Now I'm just gonna go slowly. Sometimes you don't know me. The brakes might malfunction or by mistake pressing the accelerator, but I like the sound of that. So that is just the symbol. So this symbol, this pi represents, of course, the symbolic pi represents 3.1416. 3.1416. That is the pi symbol represents the N. See, that's the river there. That's the river there, see? So represents the N. Represents the N. The pi is pi symbol, which is again the numerical value of 3.1415. It goes ad infinitum, and it's a constant, right? And just like it's a constant, it's represented by the two-faced, two heads. It's like an N with two heads, two-faced, like N, like that, you know, like the letter N for Normandy, natural, neurodivergent, neutral, or Normand, whatever, the letter N. So thus, that stated, of course, our general, of course, empire will have these two heads, you know, with these two heads. And of course, that is something which we have to be doing with that. So this following statement, one has to accord in the affirmative. So it's not negotiable.
So
you cannot negotiate. You cannot negotiate with that. You cannot negotiate with that, you know. So the negotiation, of course, which we have to be doing. So that is the symbol. Now, what the symbol represents is the number which represents the value, the relation, the ratio between the circumference, the diameter and the circumference, the circle, right? 3.1416, it never changes. It's always the same. It's a constant. So thus my statement is that this is also a constant, that for us, our primary economic, social, financial, cultural, demographic, military, defense, of course, defense strategies to have the best, most economic, social, financial, diplomatic, cultural, social, cultural, financial, economic, defense relations with the United States. There's no way around that. And vice versa for the United States vis-a-vis us, it is in reciprocity. It is in reciprocity. So that statement has been so for the issues the dissolution of the British Empire since the past 75 years. It is so today, and it will be so for the decades, because the motive, the reasons, because we have, of course, two oceans, the geographical motive because of our geography and our common social, cultural, historical precedents, historical relations, and of course common destiny, common future destiny, and just the geography, due to the geography as well, right? The geographical position. The geographical position. The geographical position. So due to the geography, just because of the geography, how we're set in, that we have two coast to coast, ocean to ocean, that we have the geography, you know, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. That is just the motive, the reason behind my statement, and that is what makes it actually factually so representative. That's why it is so, because of our geography. So once again, the statement is what I call it, when it comes to foreign affairs, right? When it comes to foreign affairs, I'm not discussing the domestic internal affairs. Domestic internal affairs are other matters, but I'm discussing singularly. Wow, I love yellow. Get distracted when I see yellow flowers, but they give me some vitality and just love it. You know me, I love yellow flowers. I go cuckoo crazy. So that is, of course, the fundamental aspects of the whole dynamic. So basically, fundamentally, that is our premise, and it's fundamentally a constant. That to us, it has been so, at least since the British Empire diminished in influence by the dissolution of its empire. And of course, the new Constitution of Canada. And of course, unfortunately, we still pledge allegiance to the King. Mark Carney, Uncle Carney, still pledged allegiance to the King. The King is absent, my fellow Canadians. The King is absent. The King is absent. The King is absent, you know. The King is absent. The King is absent. You know, the King is absent. The King is absent. Le roi est absent, as we would say in French. It's true. 50 years since it didn't show up showed up this year for the speech of the throne. But this should have been dissoluted. There should have been a republic since the 90s, since more than 25 years. Oh, look at that. That's a big 9+ here. I just love. Wow, just mouth watering. Thank you. I really love it. Wow. Bravo. Good job. Love it. Just the colorfulness. So that is just how it is. There's no negotiation for that. You cannot negotiate. You cannot dissolute. You cannot say no. You cannot object. You can only say yes. So what is the statement again? When it comes, it's a geopolitical statement of the reality, the real geopolitics, one-on-one. It cannot be changed. It is so. It is a constant, just like the pi symbol. That's what I was making the two-headed N, letter N reference for natural, neurodivergent, Normandy, or nobody, I guess, as I'm a... Maybe sometimes I was a nobody. I was a nobody. But whatever it is, I'm good at geopolitics. And this is true, what I said. And what I will repeat, as it's important for you to completely integrate it and completely absorb it, to understand it fully. And then we can proceed to discuss the DRT. So our main interest is to have the best, most cordial economic, social, financial, social, cultural, military, defense relations with the United States, with the United States. That is just what it is. That is just what it is with that. That is just what it is for the rock and the roll. That is just what it is. You cannot, of course, negate that statement. That cannot be, of course, anything else where it is. But that statement have to be accorded in the affirmative and say, you have to say yes to it. Because it's not a variable. You cannot argue. You have to say yes. And this is also for the United States vis-a-vis us. So it's not just from our point of view, from Canada, but from the United States. So as a primary number one importance, or the level of importance, are all our politicians, whether on the left, on the right, in the center right, center left, left and center. I'm not discussing of extremes here, far left and far right. No. These are center left, centrist, leftist, rightist from a North American perspective. So our main, of course, is to have the best, most economic, social, financial, defense, military alliance with the United States. Just that's how it is with that. So that, of course, reminder that it is so. You have, of course, to accord it in the yes. And that is just vice versa for the United States vis-a-vis us. So you cannot negotiate. It's a non-negotiable it's constant, right? It's a constant, not a variable. So just that's how you have to think about it. In terms of it being a constant, not a variable. I'm just gonna be careful that I'm gonna cross here safely, and that's how we're gonna get going on that, and we're gonna pass it on the side here. So that is just what it is fundamentally in essence, of course, in all the essence of our well-being, of course, on the side of all the things which we have is something which we have, of course, to get on the go with that. And of course we have to get all the organizational awareness done for all the things which we have to get on the level of all the things which we have to get doing on the left and on the right and in the middle, and all the situational awareness where we are, of course, to do in the fundamentalness of all our well-being and our wellness. That's all we have to do with that. And here you have to watch it, because sometimes they can come fast, and see, they can come from that way, and we're gonna cross on the other side. So that constant is never to be negated in the negative, because it is just so. You cannot argue with it. You cannot say no, you cannot object to it. And all our leaders, politicians, whether on the right, on the left, and in the center left, center right, you have to say it that it is so. You have to say it that it is so. You have to say that it is so. That it is what it is, and that it is what it is. It is everything burns. Everything burns. Everything burns. So that's what it is. It is a constant. Once again, you cannot negotiate. It's a constant, and it's, of course, the constant proposition where we are doing on the go for the side of the things where we have to get drilling with it. And we have to position ourselves, and we have to work towards solving this deterioration of relation. And I have to say, I got shivers again when I think about it, when I discuss it, that I did not predict that we're going to have bad relations with the U.S. as we have now. And to be honest, the RCMP warned us about growing transnational organized crime syndicates for years and years and years and years. Our federal police, the RCMP, I served in a past life, previous incarnation with it before it was known as the RCMP. But of course, they warned us for years and years and years that there's a growing, establishing, there's transnational criminal syndicates, transnational criminal syndicate organized criminals are setting shop in Canada. For years and years and years, they warned us, right? And now look at some problems that we got now. Because since August 1st, the United States has designated Canada as an extraordinary and unusual threat. We are designated, listen, this is serious now. We are designated as an unusual and extraordinary threat to the American people. You can read on the official post from August 1st that it is of concern. And that is concerning to me. That is worrisome to me, because I'm an American as well. I'm a Canadian American. I'm a North American. I'm a Quebecer. So as world citizen as I can be, but fundamentally this is what I know. This Hawk Island, Montreal, and it's been years and years and years and years since I didn't go, since more than 5 years and plus. Since I had COVID, I did not exit the island, I did not exit. Once, I think 2022, 3 years ago, we went on the summer, or was it 2023 or 2022? I went with my anonymous friend. We went, of course, to get on the ship on the beach.
A very
So that is, of course, what it is with me and geopolitics. That is, as an independent geopolitical theoretical analyst, theorist, philosopher, and thinker and strategist who develops strategies for the North American Collective and who loves little embellishments of the city like that. And lights like this. I love the lights. Thank you, Hydro-Quebec, eh? Electricity is a privilege of civilization, fundamentally, eh? To have electrification. So once again, all our politicians, but from both Canada and the United States, we must put as a number one priority to have the best, most cordial economic, social, defense, security, social, cultural relations with the United States. Right. And that's what it is with that, and that's what I gotta get doing with that. So that's how I gotta get on that go. So of course that is the fundamentals. The fundamentals regarding back to what I was saying, that since August 1st, the official White House press release. In the official White House, you can go at www.whitehouse.gov, government of the United States, official Trump administration, paper to justify and the dictatus, the dictum to the reason, the motive why tariffs have been increased on Canada, was of course that we now constitute an unusual and extraordinary threat that we pose to the American people due to the growing crossing of fentanyl in the United States. Now they said in that paper that it, of course, increased 3 times from last year, fiscal year, and the fiscal year ends in September, October, when it is the fiscal year, and that was on August 1st. And of course, the amount that's pressing supposedly could have been killing 16 million Americans. 16 million. 16 million Americans is twice the population of my province of Quebec. In Quebec, where it could be done twice. All my brothers and sisters Quebecers, they just what crossed this 2025. It's so little, it makes me think it's not really a drug, fentanyl. It seems to me more like it's a bioweapon, man. It seems to me for real, that it's not a drug, but it's a bioweapon somehow. It's a biological weapon, man. That's what I think more and more. Because it doesn't make sense, right? Because if it's killing, then it doesn't make sense because the profit motive is lost there. Right? If it's killing so many people, fentanyl, the profit motive kind of gets lost. Because it's not somebody who wants to junkie to keep coming for the addiction, to keep getting for the hook, you know? And now, I don't know, me, prior to spring 2014, maybe I was an alcoholic, maybe I was myself addicted to drugs, and that's why I got problems accessing my memory prior to spring 2014, but that's the matter is all my work, especially since 2017 when I crossed Canada coast to coast, losing weight, getting back in fitness. And yes, I have a weird sexuality. You gotta be an adult 24/7, rock and roll, man and woman, black or white, rainbow. Friends with benefits only. I'm not sexually frustrated, otherwise I would have discussed that I am. And if I am sometimes, whatever, then I will discuss it, honestly, because you can't spy on me. You can't blackmail me. Secret services of China, secret services of China, secret services of China, you know, secret services of China, you know. Secret services of China, secret services of Russia, you know, can't blackmail me. So that is just the fundamental aspect. That is just the fundamental aspect. That is just the fundamental aspect. We have to accord it, and we have to fix it, and we have to also, I have to make the statement and say that maybe not that much is not justified how much is crossing from the United States in terms of percentage, in terms of weight, but the problem is that this fentanyl is so deadly that it kills Canadians, it kills brothers and sisters in the USA. And last year, we have to say, before Trump got elected, and this we have proof, 24th of October 2024, the RCMP in British Columbia, Surrey, dismantled the biggest ever super lab in Canadian history. Biggest ever super lab in Canadian history. They seized 95 million, I guess, capsules or pills of fentanyl, which could have potentially killed twice over the population of Canada. So that makes me think, man, is the bioweapon not a freaking drug here? There must be something else than just the motive of, drug trade. Cannabis is legal since 2019 in Canada. You got that. I am generally for legalizing cocaine, speed, and ecstasy, and cannabis, these four. But with standardization and health, because I wouldn't want any of my fellow citizens of the empire getting sick from these legalized drugs. I don't do them myself. I still have cannabis from, I think, 3.5 years ago, which I still have leftovers, beautiful flowers here. But nonetheless, I'm thinking that this is not actually a drug, but it is a bioweapon. And it's coming from externally, right? Because these are transnational organized criminal syndicate groups. So they're not inborn from Canada. They came in the past decade or plus, since I guess, let's say since 2014, they've established more and more themselves in the past decade at least. Let's say for more than 10 years, 11 years, 10 years, let's say. And more. And the RCMP has been warning us for years. For years they warned us. There's a growing transnational criminal syndicate organizations that are taking place in Canada. There's growing transnational criminal organizations that are taking place in Canada, that are taking root, that are establishing themselves in Canada. There's a growing transnational criminal syndicate organization groups that are establishing themselves in Canada. We've been warned by our federal police, which is the co-equivalent to the FBI, for years and years and years and years. For years and years and years and years. We've been warned for years and years and years that is so, right? We've been warned about it. We've been warned by the RCMP. And last year, what happened? The biggest ever super lab, and that was mentioned in the aforementioned document, what I mentioned about the Trump administration's position that there's a growing domestic input, domestic growth, but it's not really domestic though, because it's transnational criminal organized syndicates, criminal organized crime groups. So it's not really domestic, but they have established themselves domestically in Canada, and they mass produce now fentanyl. And these super labs are, of course, the biggest ever was seized by the RCMP 24th of October 2023. Correction, 2024, last year. So it hasn't even been a year. 24th of October 2024. So you got 24, and 24 three times. 2024. So you got, of course, 24th of October 2024. So we've been warned. So this is something which we have, of course, to calculate and, of course, appellate. We got to get from the 24th of October 2024, last year, that this super lab in Surrey was dismantled by the RCMP, and they had seized massive amount of fentanyl. And supposedly they had used a new type of production system capability, which is imitating similar to the cartels in Mexico. So, of course, that was noted in, of course, the documents which, of course, were mentioned by the administration of Trump on 1st of August, that there's a growing domestic production of Canada by transnational organized criminal groups, such as super labs, which are able to produce something, I guess, weekly, between 44, and 66. Those numbers, 44 and 66, between 44 and 66, between 44 and 66, between 44 and 66. I guess they were saying kilos, which can be, of course, done 44 and 66 kilos, right? Between 44 and 66 kilos. So that is something which we have, of course, to possess, to fully integrate and fully appellate and fully turn our heads left and right before you cross the street. So that is a fact, that we have, of course, criminal syndicate, transnational organized criminal syndicate groups, which are, of course, taking us and doing us and have established themselves in Canada for more and more since in the past decade. I'm gonna say in the past decade, So that is true. So now there's that paradox, So in other words, we have to discern, and that's why my way to fuse Canada and United States best and fuse the RCMP, the FBI, into what I call the Imperial Police Service Force, the Imperial Police Service Force Imperial Police Service Force. And now I'm going to discuss the DRT, because we have to implement the DRT, the debt refusion theory, for the creation, of course, of the DRT, the complementary positions of which we have. And gotta turn my head left and right. So the DRT, debt refusion theory, the D, debt, R, refusion, T theory stands for D, debt, D, R, refusion theory. We have to implement it. So I'm now going to focus on discussing the DRT. The debt refusion theory, the DRT, the debt refusion theory, is my theory, which of course can save us, and we have to implement it binationally. It's part of the binational, what I call the bipolar geopolitical strategy for total BDD. Benevolence, dominance, and dominion. The BDD, benevolence, dominance, and dominion. The BDD, benevolent, dominance, and dominion. The BDD, benevolent, dominance, and dominion of the world. So what is the debt refusion theory, and how come it is the only solution, or something similar to my DRT theory is the solution for our financial economic problems for both Canada and United States? And we have to implement it once again, Canada and United States together, binational, because it is of course part of the bipolar geopolitical strategy for total BDD, benevolent, dominance, and dominion. That's what the acronym is, BDD, benevolent, dominance, and dominion of the world, by fusing Canada and the United States into the Imperial Republican complex of the perpetual 63 Union by the coming of our articles list signed on September 11th, and we have to get it on the go. So that is just what it is, as the structure of what we have, and that is just the appellation and the motives where we are involved 24/7 in the culturation and all the appellations that we have to implement the DRT, debt refusion theory, the debt refusion theory, the DRT, debt refusion theory. So the DRT, debt refusion theory, for the creation of the UE, we're gonna, of course, we're gonna have to appellate, and we're gonna have to be doing on that, and gonna have to get doing on that rock and roll, So that is what it is with that, and that's how I gotta get on that drilling. So the BDD, benevolence, dominance, and dominion. That is just something which we have to do, and that is just something which we have to get doing. The BDD, benevolence, dominance, and dominion. But this theory is the DRT, and it includes the monetary integration theory. So we have to implement it binationally. It includes monetary integration theory, which is the financial theory, which was implemented in the European Union. It was implemented in the European Union in the 90s. The Germans, the Italians, the French, they of course created this currency called the euro with the ECB, of course, the creation of the ECB. So they created it back, of course, in the 90s. So of course the BDD is part, of course, this strategy, bipolar geopolitical strategy, again, not to be confused with the bipolar condition, which has to do with psychology and psychiatrical conditions. So it has nothing to do with psychology or psychiatry. It has to do with geopolitical strategy. But bipolar is in that two-headed N, which I mentioned before, just about 44 minutes ago, that our empire will have kind of two heads, two faces, and a benevolent and a punishing one, if you will. A benevolent and a punishing one, benevolent and a punishing one. So, gotta slow down. So now I'm gonna explain it. And again, the DRT, the debt refusion theory, includes and integrates D, monetary integration theory, which is the financial theory which was integrated in the European Union. Which, of course, the Germans, the Italians, the French, the Belgians, of course, in Belgium, Belgium, Italy, France, Germany, other countries, many countries, they destroyed their national currencies, and they, of course, created a common central bank for many countries, the ECB, the European Central Bank, which, of course, issues the euro, issues the euro. Which issues the euro. Which issues the euro. Issues the euro. Salutation to the truckers. How many truckers on the road carrying bacon, cheese, milk, butter? Across the 63, how many carrying in their eggs, bacon, cheese, romaine lettuce, salad, tomatoes, potatoes, many hundreds, many thousands of trucks. Salutation to the truckers on the road. There's a 24/7, eh? We're gonna be the empire that never sleeps, I guess. Never sleeping empire. I gotta sleep sometimes, and I won't sleep that much if somebody volunteers to do me a massage therapy session, you know? So that's what it is, and that's what it is, and that's what we got, and that's just the DRT, which I'm gonna explain it fully after we get the hydration there at the corner. I'm gonna start now. I'm gonna hydrate later, switch to that French because we're not belle province. So the DRT, the debt refusion theory, the DRT debt refusion theory includes monetary integration theory, which is the financial theory which was implemented in the European Union. So we're going to take all the public and the private debt. I'm now going to explain the DRT because we have to implement it because, again, of the four main problems which are facing us economically. I have to mention that, super important. For both many Canadians and many my brothers and sisters in the USA, we got four main economic problems. These four main economic problems are: one is the growing rents. Rents are increasing. Even my rent increased. But I'm just gonna say, for me, I cannot complain, because for me it's justified. I can't complain. I'm gonna say it's between $6, minimum $6, and $10. Between minimum $6 and $10. So either or in between. 6 as a minimum, 10 as a maximum, so it could be between. The growing cost of living, the prices of bacon, of eggs, of cheese, of bread, of milk, and even my wafers and cocoa, chocolate are increasing. Okay, so but you can place this in different orders. You don't have to place it in the same order. The stagnation of the salaries, and of course the growing credit card debt. We, both Canadians and United States, we are now at a massive credit card indebtedness. Massive credit cards. So these four in whatever order. Due to those four factors which are affecting the majority of the population of both Canada and the United States. So just that's what it is with that, and that's how we gotta go. So here we are, a little bit of that proposition, a bit of that hydration, HYDRAT, because with hydration we're gonna get some of that workout training exercise. Again, super important to hydrate along the way, because I sweated up a little bit of that, but it's always 24/7, you know. For the truckers, the bakers, the butchers, the nurses, the doctors, firefighters, and here the privilege of civilization, we got HYDRAT. Oh yeah, I guess that was enough for hydration. So we're gonna take all the public and the private debt. Now this is the DRT explained. We're gonna take all the public and the private debt. We're gonna convert all the public private debt of Canada coast to coast. We're gonna add it together, and we're gonna convert it into US dollars. We're gonna add all the public and the private debt together. We're gonna add it together, all the public private debt, and we're gonna add it all together, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. Coast to coast, ocean to ocean, all the public and the private debt. And so we're gonna add it all together, and we're gonna create this new currency. We're gonna create a new currency, of course, where we gotta get it on the go. So we're gonna create a new currency, and of course we're gonna get this new creation of the new currency and a new central bank, which we're gonna of course create. And Apple is the gateway, of course, for the creation of this new central bank, what we're gonna have, and we're gonna get on those go, and we're gonna get it on that, you know. And that's how we're gonna get it, do it with that, you know. So just all the coast to coast, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. They're gonna get, of course, the creation of this mega new central bank for the Canada, United States. You know, is gonna be created, of course, for the appellation of those, of course, who are, and those, of course, to get it on the go with that. And that's just what it is with that. And we gotta get it for the drill, man. You know, it's something which we gotta get. You know. You can't be. Ain't got no. That's what it is. So of course we're gonna take all the public and the private debt, and we're gonna create this new currency. All the public private debt, we're gonna create all the new currency, and that's what we're gonna be doing with that. So all, of course, all the public and the private debt, that's what we're gonna get doing with that. So that's what we're gonna get doing with that. So we're gonna take all the public and the private debt, we're of course gonna create it, and that's what we're gonna do, you know, that's what we're gonna do. So all of the public and the private debt, that is what we're gonna do. So that's the DRT theory, the debt refusion theory, which we're gonna do. All the DRT, the debt refusion theory, which we're gonna do together, you know. That is just what we gotta get doing with that. So all, of course, what we have to do is something which we have to do it on the go. So all, of course, of the propositions, and of course something which we got, and that's how we got, and that's how we gotta get on the drill. So all the public and the private debt, we're gonna convert it all, of course, into a massive conversion of the United States dollars. And we're gonna add it with the public private debt of the United States. All that money is gonna be the initial money supply, plus the money in circulation, of course, which exists in circulation now, you know, which exists in circulation now. All the public and the private debt, which exists in circulation now. So all that public-private debt, that is, of course, something which is gonna increase, you know. So that is something which we gotta get for the left, for the right, and of course, for the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the firefighters, the plumbers, the electricians, and turn your heads left and right, because sometimes they might pop in out of nowhere, eh? They might turn, and then you get a little bit of a car collision. So all the public and the private debt, we're gonna take all the public and the private debt, and of course we're gonna create it all the public and the private debt, convert it into US dollars, you know. We're gonna create it into US dollars, and that's what we gotta get doing with that, and that's what we're gonna get doing with that. So that's what it is, you know. That's what it is, man. We made it. So all the public and the private debt converted into US dollars, you know. Converted into US dollars. All the public and the private debt is converted into US dollars. That is something, of course, which you gotta be understanding of, that we have to implement it, or something similar to my theory has to be implemented. We're on the verge of a public financial collapse. It could happen tomorrow. Trump's meeting Putin. It could happen that it is happening tomorrow, right? It is a possibility. It is a possibility. Hey, $11, $10, not so bad. So all the public, I'm gonna now explain it once again, you know. All the public and the private bank, all the public and the private bank, that's what it's gonna be. That's what it is with that, and that's what it is with the go. All the public and the private debt. So here we're gonna turn. There's a cat alley there. That's a cat alley, famous. Got pictures of cats, you know. Pictures of cats. Pictures of cats there. Pictures of cats, you know. Keep your from the street. It's a famous guy down in Integree, you know. That's what it is. Jump. So that is, of course, the DRT, the debt refusion theory, you know. Yeah, man. The debt refusion theory, we have to implement the DRT, the debt refusion theory, debt refusion theory. So we're gonna take all the public and the private debt, all the public and the private debt, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, all that debt. This is, I'm excited because on the table that's the solution. If you listen, we're on the verge of a public, there's too much indebtedness, the prices are going up, the salaries are stagnating, we have more and more strikes. Action, this is a nice one. I have no place, but for a new place, if I would have something bigger, I'm grateful for what I have, eh? Grateful for what I got, grateful for what I got. So, all the public-private debt, we're gonna convert it into US dollars. Gonna convert it into US dollars. We're gonna convert it into US dollars, right? All the public and the private debt, we're gonna convert it into US dollars. We're gonna add it with the US dollars. All that public and private debt, we're gonna add it with the US dollars. And of course, all that public-private debt, we're gonna add it with the US dollars. And of course, we're gonna create this new central bank. This new central bank, you know. All of it, we're gonna add it together. Gonna add it together. Using I don't know, boss. Forced. Forced laughter. Forced laughter. So we have, of course, to implement the DRT, the debt refusion theory. The debt refusion theory, the debt refusion theory. Of course, the debt refusion theory is, of course, something what we have to be doing. You know, we have to appellate, of course, you know, the congruences of all the things which we have, you know. Now they got mass disillusionment, eh? Mass disillusionment, eh? So, of course, the DRT is the solution. So back to the DRT, as I was saying, the debt refusion theory is something which we have to integrate and appellate. So the debt refusion theory is something which we have to, of course, communicate and appellate, of course, in all the interjection of the polities, of course, the XYZ sentiments of the manners of where we are, concomitantly and imprudently where we are now living. But we have no choice but to implement something similar, because we already see in Canada in the past weeks most public cuts ever. What are we gonna cut, Mr. Carney, Uncle Carney? The RCMP, the prisons. Already the prisons are gonna have to implement the North American Criminal Rehabilitation program in order to help to build the 44, because it seems that was going to have to be cut, and we're not able to sustain it, because exhaustion and mass disillusionment, and we're in a crisis. Where we have to admit, we have to say clearly that we are in a mass crisis. Is the storm of the century for the North American Collective, Canada, United States. We're designated as an extraordinary and unusual threat by our brothers and sisters in the USA. Well, superpower. That's what it is with that, and that's what we gotta get doing on that go. That's just how we have to get doing with that, and that's just how we have to get doing on the Appalachian, and to get doing on the left and on the right and in the middle, of course, of the congruencies. So all the public-private debt, we're gonna convert it into US dollars. All the public and the private debt, of course, we're gonna convert it into US dollars. To US dollars. Oh, we're gonna convert it into US dollars. We're gonna convert it into US dollars. Into US dollars. We're gonna convert it into US dollars. We're gonna add it with the US dollar, and all that money is gonna be the initial money supply for this new central bank, where we're gonna issue the UE, U.Universal, U.Exchange, U.UE, the UE, the Universal Exchange Unit, the UE, the UE, the UE, the U.Universal, U.Exchange, U.UE. The Universal Exchange Unit is gonna have the value of the US dollar. So we're gonna create this new currency, Canada, United States, this new Imperial Republic Central Bank, just like they did in Europe, and we're gonna issue we're gonna create the UE. My eyes on you like a hawk. H-U-W-K. The UE, U.Universal, U.Exchange, U.UE. The U.Universal, U.Exchange, U.UE. The Universal Exchange Unit is gonna have the value of the US dollar. The UE. The Universal Exchange Unit is gonna have the value of the US dollar. So this UE, we're gonna add an interest rate level on it of 10%. It's not gonna be able to be more than 10%. Not gonna be able to be more than 10%. 10% maximum. So this 10% maximum, is gonna be the new financial order plateau. So this 10% maximum. With this money, we're gonna be able, of course, to rehabilitate the North American population. We're gonna be able to construct the 44 tunnels in case of a thermonuclear war. We're gonna be able, of course, to re-implement the North American population. Of course, we're gonna be able to do it with that, and that's all we're gonna be able to do. And of course, we're gonna be able to do it on the go. So that is just something which we have to do. So we're gonna be implementing, of course, the North American strategy, the collective. That's just what we're gonna do. The implementation of this DRT will lead us to fight Armageddon, 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 Armageddon. Together here, somebody's making love now across dancing my youth. Children of the empire, free, brave, strong, loving, and just nonetheless. Just and righteous. You're gonna have to do that justice by the DRT, Debt Refusion Treaty for Canada, United States United, the American brothers and sisters, the population, and my brothers and sisters in Canada. We're gonna open the resources, we're gonna rehabilitate our population, we're gonna rebuild the ghettos. Rebuild the ghettos, rebuild the ghettos, rebuild the ghettos. Mass finance the reconstruction of our bridges, our infrastructure. We're gonna rebuild the ghettos of North America, of Canada, United States. Together, we're gonna get the North American criminal rehabilitation population. We're gonna finance mass citizens to work out, train, exercise. We're gonna mass finance citizens to mass finance. We're gonna mass finance citizens to mass finance citizen to work out, train, exercise. And exercise. You, where you at? We're gonna rehabilitate, mass finance the North American population, rehabilitate our brothers and sisters, incorporate our security forces, the youth to train and dance safely in the streets, dance lovingly and work out, train and partake in sports 24/7, mass finance fitness across our empire, mass finance citizens wellness, mass finance joy, through fitness and loving consent, hygiene, and adults, of course. If you're adolescents, you make out with adolescents. Adults with adults. I said that's all. Consent, hygiene, rock and roll. Coast to coast, ocean to ocean. Coast to coast, ocean to ocean, coast to coast. Ocean to ocean, coast to coast. Ocean to ocean. We're gonna build this bridge together. We're gonna build the UE. We're gonna create the UE, University Exchange Unit. We're gonna get rid of the border, implement a mass census, a mass census, a mass census, a mass census. Mass census. A mass census. Bye. There's a flag spotted, always got it on, and that's what we have to do, and that's how we gotta get doing, with that, and that's how we get drilling on that drill, So we gotta get on that left and on the right, and of course to get it on the go, So here, as we cross this bridge, remind ourselves that we always gotta build bridges to myself, you, and others. To myself as a neurodivergent, and us. We're gonna build this mass bridge. We're gonna get married, get rid of the border, create the Imperial Republican Security Service and Defense Legion, incorporating all the National Guard, the Canadian Armed Forces, and mobilizing additional 1% in perpetual from all the 63. 1% of the population of each state would constitute the legions for only SSD, only and strictly for security service and defense, coast to coast, ocean to ocean for security service and defense, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. 1% of all the population of the 63 super states, which we're gonna fuse 13 of Canada and the United States in the perpetual Imperial Union. We're gonna create this coast to coast, ocean to ocean, and all who come to join us, we're gonna do a census, see who's been living here in both Canada and United States across the 50, the 10, and the 3 for the past 7 years, 9 years, 10 years, and give an amnesty. Create this massive supercomputer structures and do a passport and mass do the rehabilitation of the population in the streets by mass social housing building and mass allocating credits, UEs for working out, training, exercising, and mass protocols for public rehabilitation and public hygiene protocols, and mass finance citizens fitness, mass finance tourism, mass finance citizens physical activity and fitness. And we're gonna create this super legions, super dragon army, total integrated with our existing, plus a mobilization of 1% in perpetuum of all who are, of course, of age to serve in the legion for total SSD, security service and defense, and fourth dimension ER, emergency response. And now we're gonna switch to that French because we're in La Belle Province, so we gotta get that rock and roll it for the French a little bit. It's gonna slow down, let my cousin there go in the curb and let him pass with a bike. So now we're gonna get a little bit of that rock and roll. So that is basically the DRT, the debt fusion theory. DRT, debt refusion treaty, for the UE, for the universal exchange unit, and that's why we're gonna have to get that rock and roll. So the DRT, debt refusion theory, we're gonna create, of course, the DRT theory. Of course, we're gonna implement for the UE. So now, as we cross this bridge here, we made the great linguistic compromise, which we're gonna be, because Quebec is one of those 63, which is gonna continue to have the French bilingual status of the French language, understanding that this state, which are 13 states, which we're gonna add to fuse our empire of the 63, the 10, the 50, and the 313 of Canada, new added 13 for the perpetual union. We have Quebec, because we're gonna have bilingualism, and of course make an effort like Celine Dion. Donald Trump is going to be able to make a little bit, as the legions who are in Quebec are going to be, of course, always encouraged to learn some French when we come here in Quebec. So rock and roll, pledge your allegiance 24/7 for the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, the firefighters, the plumbers, the electricians, all those involved in the production, distribution of food, all those, of course, productions, distribution of food, who are now, of course, on the alarm to get it on the go, to get it on the left, on the right, and all those mobilizations. For this pledge your allegiance, let's sign the perpetual Imperial Republican Union and get rock and rolling with the work, which is massively a public-private partnership, part of my dream, the dancing goddess in the dragon kingdom. Pledge your allegiance, thou art family. Bienvenue ce soir, 14 août. Je vous encourage premièrement à faire l'entraînement physique. Je vais commencer avec la gratitude. La gratitude, j'ai payé mon loyer. J'ai payé ma facture d'électricité, j'ai du café, puis du thé, puis bien sûr, me voilà à l'entraînement physique. Je suis un peu inquiet de cette situation, bien sûr, qui c'est vis-à-vis nous, le Canada, le Québec, le Québécois, le Canadien, Québécois, les Nord-Américains. En effet, cette détérioration avec des relations avec les États-Unis m'inquiète profondément. C'est bien sûr quelque chose que moi je suis moi-même. Vous savez, pas seulement un artiste, athlète et mystique, qui vous chante bien du rock'n'roll le 24/24, mais aussi un analyste, théoricien, penseur et stratège en géopolitique indépendant. Fait en sachant bien sûr cette norme que vous êtes, et puis bien sûr pour être rendu dans cette situation qu'on vit aujourd'hui, je dois saluer bien sûr les pompiers de la manière que je donne des salutations bien sûr vis-à-vis à tous les protocoles d'implémentation qu'on soit aujourd'hui, rendu le 14 août. Quand même, si je vis un stress financièrement, maintenant, mon seul stress est financier de la même manière, bien sûr que mon seul stress en étant que je vis un stress financièrement, c'est mon seul stress vis-à-vis, hein, c'est le seul problème que j'ai moi-même, c'est un stress financier, c'est bien sûr ces choses-là qui m'inquiètent, c'est sûr que c'est un stress financier dans ces choses, bien sûr qu'on aille, bien sûr, dans ce stress financier d'avoir, mais c'est sûr que c'est quelque chose qui, je dois avoir quand même une gratitude de que mon loyer est payé, ma facture d'électricité est payée, j'ai du café, j'ai du thé, puis j'ai de la nourriture, mais que je retourne chez nous. Même des barres de chocolat, ils ont augmenté de prix encore. Ben, la semaine, là, 4 semaines, là, ils ont augmenté de 50 cents à 63. Toutes les barres que j'ai achetées avant, là, c'était 4 barres de chocolat différentes, des différentes à noisettes, à la crème dedans, ou un peu comme des gaufres, puis un autre qui est un peu plus épais. Ces 4-là, là, les 4, ils ont augmenté de 50 cents à 63 cents, les 4. Les 4, il y a avant, chaque 4, c'est des barres de chocolat différentes, mais ils étaient à 50 cents, puis là, 4 semaines, ils ont augmenté à 63. Mais si on calcule en pourcentage, c'est 26%. Hein? Parce que 13 cents, là, ça paraît pas beaucoup, mais quand on met sur 1000, ça augmente. Hein? Fait que c'est des dollars, des milliers de dollars là, d'augmentation à tous les dollaramas du Québec. Hein? C'est juste de Montréal, c'est des milliers, puis des milliers, puis des milliers, puis des milliers, puis des milliers de dollars, dans le fond. Puis c'est quand même de 50 cents à 63, ça veut dire qu'on calcule de même 63 moins 13 pour faire le pourcentage. Ça, c'est quelque chose que je peux faire par des heures par jour. Là. J'ai l'Asperger's, fait que c'est les mathématiques de même, c'est quelque chose que moi, c'est quand même naturel, si on veut dire naturel dans ma nature, mais dans ma neurodivergence en tant que neurodivergent, là, mais c'est sûr que c'est à cet égard-là. Mais si on calcule, donc de 63 moins 50, ça donne 13. 13. Donc 13 cents, c'est 26%. C'est 26%. Là. C'est un gros pourcentage, tu sais. C'est un gros pourcentage. Hein. Fait que c'est quand même un gros pourcentage qu'on doit en avoir de ce point de vue de coopération, bien sûr, qu'on se trouve maintenant. En saluant les pompiers, les boulangers, les travailleurs des services publics, ceux qui font le chauffage de nos autobus, transport public, puis bien sûr ceux qui font bien sûr de la même manière. Puis aujourd'hui que ça soit bien sûr dans cet point bien sûr ou qui est bien sûr de cet point bien sûr d'avoir les transports publics et puis bien sûr le commun des transports bien sûr du ramassage des poubelles. Merci pour ces services. Ça prend bien sûr ces services publics pour le nettoyage. Puis je vais dire juste un peu sur l'Asperger's. Qu'est-ce que je sais, c'est cette condition laquelle que je suis atteint. Je suis atteint par cette condition qui s'appelle l'Asperger's. Donc c'est pas une maladie. Puis il faut que je le répète parce que souvent ces derniers, c'est souvent là. Puis même la semaine passée, là, quelqu'un a fait de l'erreur dans un magasin. J'ai commencé à parler parce qu'on regardait ensemble un café. Fait que on parlait un peu, fait que je me suis approché proche, tu sais, puis j'ai dû prendre un pas en arrière de recul parce que je me suis rendu compte qu'à cause de l'Asperger, ces caractéristiques font que des fois on se rapproche trop proche des citoyennes quand on leur parle. C'est quelque chose qu'il faut constamment que je travaille sur ces caractéristiques en tant qu'Asperger's. Donc c'est quelque chose qu'il faut nous le dire directement, nous, tu prendre distance, tu es trop proche, des choses comme ça, parce que ces choses de la société, là, les normes non écrites et des choses de même, c'est plus difficile pour les Asperger's. Ça rend plus difficile, c'est plus difficile pour nous de la compréhension. Ces choses-là, c'est pas si facile pour nous. Puis, bon, fait que, puis en plus, on n'est pas beaucoup dans le monde, hein, c'est moins d'1%, moins de la moitié d'un pourcentage. Là. C'est 0,44% des citoyens et citoyennes qui ont l'Asperger's, l'autisme monde fonctionnel. Fait que je fais partie d'une petite minorité. Fait que je parlais avec le citoyen, je ne sais pas si c'était citoyen ou non, mais quand même, justement, pour le dire, bien sûr, que j'avais fait de l'avis, bien sûr, de cet avis de pourcentage. Puis je disais moi-même dans cette discussion, bien sûr, que ça faisait que je l'ai mentionné, que j'avais l'Asperger's, puis elle a dit « Ah oui, je connais la maladie », fait que j'ai dit « Non, 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 non », puis après elle a dit « Ah oui, oui, je connais cette maladie-là », puis j'ai dit « Non, 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 non », puis après il a pensé, puis c'est autocorrigé, il a dit « Ah oui, c'est pas vraiment une maladie, c'est une condition de neurodivergence », puis j'ai dit « Exactement », fait que c'est pas une maladie, c'est juste qu'on voit le monde différemment à cause des mutations du cerveau, puis on a de la misère, puis on a des problèmes quand même vis-à-vis de... On n'a pas beaucoup d'amis, on garde pas souvent nos amis, là. Puis je veux pas perdre votre temps, perdre pas le mien, le mien. Des amis avec bénéfice seulement, tu sais. Vous êtes adulte, vous aimez en rock-and-roll, noir et femme, homme blanche, homme, femme, noir, blanche que vous êtes. Moi, je fais partie aussi de la communauté LGBTQ, mais androgyne, pansexuel, mais il faut que vous soyez adulte. Hein, fait que on va pouvoir faire bien de l'amour du rock-and-roll avec consentement entre adultes, là, mais à part ça, c'est sûr que je veux rien savoir sinon. Bon. Je veux carter comme carte quand vous allez bien sûr vous acheter de la bière ou du cannabis, c'est quelque chose que vous faites bien sûr dans ce point de contingence de la vie aujourd'hui qu'on est rendu. C'est sûr que moi, mon intérêt spécial, aussi connu comme obsessif, c'est la géopolitique. Puis en étant un stratège de la géopolitique, un analyste, un penseur, puis un analyste théoricien indépendant, j'ai prévu qu'est-ce qui se passe maintenant dans le monde en 2019, en octobre, puis j'ai la preuve, hein, j'ai la vidéo que j'ai fait le développement d'un scénario de la guerre mondiale, de la Troisième Guerre mondiale. J'ai la preuve en ligne, en plus de ça, j'ai la preuve de ce que je me prononce. J'ai la preuve par vidéo, sur YouTube. Fait que j'avais prévu qu'il y aura une conflagration internationale en 2019. En 2019, j'avais prévu qu'il y aurait une conflagration internationale en 2019. Fait que bien sûr, j'avais prévu cette conflagration internationale de la même manière, généralement parlant, de qu'est-ce qui se passe aujourd'hui. Par exemple, qu'est-ce que j'ai pas prévu, là? Qu'est-ce que j'ai pas prévu, bien sûr, c'est qu'il y aura une détérioration des relations avec les États-Unis. Comme que ça arrive de même, puis ça m'inquiète profondément parce que ça va faire 2 semaines demain, depuis le 1er août, là, puis c'est sérieux, là, j'ai des frissons quand j'en parle. Vous savez que depuis le 1er août, là, on est désigné par les États-Unis, l'administration de Trump, comme une menace en anglais, c'est unusual, ça veut dire hors commun et extraordinaire. Unusual and extraordinary. Hors commun et extraordinaire. On est désigné comme une menace hors commun et extraordinaire. Hors commun et extraordinaire. Hors commun et extraordinaire. On est désigné de même, tu sais. Hors commun et extraordinaire. Hors commun et extraordinaire. Une menace. À cause qu'il y a dit dans la déclaration de la Maison-Blanche qu'il y a tellement de fentanyl qui est rentré qu'il aurait pu tuer 16 millions d'Américains. 16 millions d'Américains, vous comprenez? Fait que c'est sérieux quand même. Tu c'est sérieux, ça m'inquiète, ça m'inquiète vraiment personnellement qu'on est dans un point de danger, là, un point de qu'on soit désigné de même, puis dans cette déclaration de la Maison-Blanche elle-même, cette déclaration officielle, vous pouvez voir qu'à cause que ça, c'est la justification de l'augmentation des tarifs. Ça dit aussi, bien sûr, que notre force de l'ordre, comme la GRC ou quoi que ce soit d'autre, qui est équivalent au bureau d'enquête, qui n'ont pas coopérer comme il faut sur le fentanyl. Puis ils disent que le fentanyl, que ça rentrait en 2025, de l'année fiscale qui n'est pas finie, ça a triplé, c'est 3 fois plus qu'en 2024. Puis même, ben, ça aurait pu quand même tuer des 16 millions, parce que je me demande de plus en plus, ce fentanyl, là, moi, ça me semble pas que c'est une drogue, ça. Une drogue, là, c'est quelque chose que pour le récréatif, là, comme le cannabis, c'est légal. Depuis 2019, on a légalisé le cannabis puis bien du hashish sur le marché légal, là, qu'il y a tellement de choix que vous pouvez en tester à tous les jours, à toutes les semaines. Moi, je consomme pas. Il m'en reste même, bien sûr, depuis 3 ans et demi que j'en ai, bien sûr, moi-même. Depuis 3 ans et demi que j'en ai acheté, j'en ai moi-même. Fait que bien sûr que ça soit d'une autre manière pour le dire. Moi, ça ressemble plus à une arme biologique, ça, là. Le fentanyl, pour moi, ça ressemble plus à une arme biologique. Pour vous dire la vérité, j'ai de plus en plus, les mois qui passent, l'information que je reçois, puis c'est que c'est mortel, puis il y a de plus en plus de morts vis-à-vis l'augmentation des doses, surdoses, les surdoses de fentanyl. On dirait que c'est pas manufacturé par l'intention d'être une drogue. C'est plus comme, hey, wow! Que c'est pas vraiment une drogue, mais c'est une arme bactériologique, parce qu'une drogue, tu sais, la clientèle, les gens qui font une drogue, d'habitude, ils veulent que les gens consomment régulièrement, qu'ils deviennent comme des clients régulièrement, comme pour le cannabis, c'est légal, ou, je sais pas, d'autres drogues, la cocaïne, ou l'ecstasy, ou les pilules de speed, là. Speed, moi, j'en consomme pas, je sais pas, avant 2014, le printemps, parce que j'ai de la misère à me souvenir ma mémoire de ma vie avant 2014, où j'habitais à Côte-des-Neiges, dans une petite, c'était comme une petite cellule de prison, là. C'était pas une cellule de prison, mais c'était tellement petit, puis en souterrain, il y avait beaucoup de moisissures, puis j'ai déménagé, puis j'ai vécu une dépression pendant une couple d'années. J'ai traversé le Canada de côte à côte, fait que ça m'a vraiment fait du bien, bien sûr, pour en faire, bien sûr, pour être, bien sûr, de la même constitution, bien sûr, que j'en sois, bien sûr, aujourd'hui, pour l'être, bien sûr, de m'avoir, bien sûr, pour m'avoir restitué dans ce point de caractéristiques, ou que je sois, bien sûr, dans ce domaine de la géopolitique. Fait que ça a l'air, bien sûr, que c'est une arme bactériologique, puis c'est pas, bien sûr, ça n'a pas l'air d'une drogue, parce que si, mettons, c'est une drogue, là, puis ça tue les gens, mais c'est, vous comprenez, les gens, s'ils meurent de plus en plus, ça veut dire qu'ils vont pas consommer, ils vont pas acheter encore, fait que c'est quelque chose qui clique pas, bien sûr, que c'est comme une drogue. C'est pour ça que je classifie ça plus comme une arme bactériologique, bien sûr, dans le fond, bien sûr, pour être dans ce fond, bien sûr, dans ce fond, bien sûr. Ça pas, bien sûr. Je vais tourner par l'autre bord. Je vais changer d'idée, bien sûr. Des fois, je change d'idée, puis je me tourne de bord. Je vais dire, je vais aller par l'autre bord, par le nord. Parce que comme ça, j'y vais souvent par là. Des fois, c'est bon, tu sais, changer de chemin, là, comme... C'est sûr qu'à cause de mon Asperger's, bien sûr, j'ai une routine, tu sais. C'est sûr que j'ai une routine, bien sûr. Fait que c'est ça qui, moi, ça me donne l'impression vraiment là, que le fentanyl, c'est plus, tu sais, c'est plus comme, c'est plus bien sûr comme, c'est plus bien sûr comme une arme bactériologique. Tu sais, c'est plus comme une arme bactériologique. Tu sais, c'est ça que ça me donne l'impression, tu sais. Comme une arme bactériologique. C'est ça l'impression que ça me donne, sérieusement. De plus en plus, je classifie ça, pas comme une drogue, mais comme une arme bactériologique, tu sais. C'est des choses de même, bien sûr, que ça fait, bien sûr, dans ce point de compromis, bien sûr. C'est bien sûr dans ce point de compromis, bien sûr, qu'on se donne. Fait que dans ce point de contingence, il faut toujours savoir que on est en danger maintenant. Danger, puis les tarifs, il faut être réaliste, hein, il faut dire que notre intérêt principalement, là, en tant que Québécois, Canadien, c'est d'avoir les meilleures relations avec les États-Unis. Ça, c'est constamment de même. C'est pas, bien sûr, ça varie pas, bien sûr. C'est pas une variation, bien sûr. C'est une constance, comme le symbole N, qui a la relation, bien sûr, du cercle, puis du cercle, bien sûr, que ça soit le cercle, la circonférence, bien sûr. C'est la circonférence, la relation du diamètre, puis de la circonférence du cercle. C'est toujours 3,1416, 3,1415. C'est la relation du cercle. Fait que c'est constamment de même. Fait que nous, c'est constamment oui, pour que nous, on ait les meilleures relations avec les États-Unis. Ça change pas. Vous comprenez? Ça change pas, ces choses-là. Ces choses-là ne fluctuent pas. Ça change pas. C'est constamment la même chose. C'est constamment ça. C'était le même pendant des décennies. C'est comme ça aujourd'hui, puis ça sera comme ça dans les prochains. Oui, des années à venir, des décennies à venir. On n'a pas le choix, là. Vous comprenez qu'est-ce qui se passe? On est en train d'avoir un effondrement financier. 75, bien sûr, l'instant, vont bien sûr aux États-Unis. Vont aussi aux États-Unis. Vont aux États-Unis. 75, bien sûr, vont bien sûr aux États-Unis. 75% vont aux États-Unis. De nos exportations, là, mes chers. On est désigné depuis, demain c'est 13 jours aujourd'hui, demain c'est 4 jours qu'on est désigné comme une. On est désigné bien sûr comme une menace extraordinaire. Menace extraordinaire, bien sûr. Menace extraordinaire, bien sûr. Menace extraordinaire et hors commun. On est désigné comme une menace extraordinaire et hors commun, bien sûr. C'est ça les paroles, bien sûr, que ça m'inquiète, parce que même qu'est-ce qui se passe ailleurs dans le monde, nous, là, on reste un collectif de civilisation nord-américain. Fait que c'est ça, il faut qu'on aille, bien sûr, en première place. C'est ça, il faut qu'on aille, bien sûr, en première place. C'est ça, bien sûr, qu'il faut qu'on aille en première place. Fait que dans ce point, bien sûr, de contingence, là, pour être, bien sûr, dans ce point d'avoir vécu, bien sûr, où qu'on est rendu aujourd'hui, dans ce point de situation, c'est ça qu'il faut penser au plus, de la droite, de la gauche, du centre.